Great. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to beautiful downtown Summerside and to our monthly City of Summerside Council meeting of January 20th, 2025. I'll begin by calling the Planning Board meeting here to order at 5:30 p.m. I'll begin by calling for an approval of the Planning Board agenda before you. There'll be members of Planning Board, Councilor Duran, second. Councilor Snow, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, changes, or revisions? Hearing none, we will move on. We begin each one of our meetings here at the City of Summerside by acknowledging that the land upon which we're gathered is unceded Mi'kmaq territory. Abogway is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. We pay our respects to the indigenous Mi'kmaq people who have occupied this island for over 12,000 years. At this point, this will be open to all members of council to declare a conflict of interest with respect to the item before you on the Planning Board agenda. Hearing none, we'll continue to move forward, and we'll now move to category number 2, and at this point I'll hand it over to the studious chair of Planning Board, Councilor Duran.
Love the adjectives tonight. Thank you, Your Worship. So the recommendation for the zoning amendment application, 255 Greenwood Drive. Supporting explanation, the purpose of the zoning amendment is to allow development of high-density residential housing. Background, an application from Z&C Flourish International Limited for portions of PID number 1163526 to amend the city's zoning bylaw from single-family residential R1 zone to high-density residential R4 zone, and from low-density residential R2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone. Being as there are 3 areas being considered for zoning amendments, each proposed zoning amendment is being processed separately. The applicant's plan indicates the focus on outer R4 development. The zoning for the middle section of the development will remain as is and will be developed as per the uses permitted in the current zones. And I believe those zones within the interior are R1, R2 mix, A public meeting was held on December 16th, 2024, and council gave first reading on the same date. The report under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw, when planning board reviews a zoning bylaw amendment, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. Under section 8.4 of the Parks and Green Space Plan, the criteria of B, C, E, G, and H must be considered. So A, conformity with all requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment, any development on the proposed R4 zones would have to meet the development standards, so setbacks, lot sizes, etc., of the zone. Staff have included both the existing R4 development standards and the amended R4 development standards that are pending the Minister of Housing, Land and Communities approval, as shown on the table below. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment, the land use of the subject property is currently designated as residential land use, as shown on the future land use map, future land use plan, the map, see page 4. The proposed residential land use conforms with the official plan subject to council's policies outlined in the official plan regarding location criteria for high-density housing. As noted in the city planning officer's review of the previous application for this property in late 2023, the planning officer noted an appropriate transition in zones, i.e. R1, R2, R3, is sound planning, and rezoning some smaller areas to R4 around the green spaces in the southeast and northeast corners of the property is appropriate. The proposed amendments will not impact the Parks and Green Space Plan. Staff prepared a map comparing the 2023 R4 application, which consisted of 39.9 acres, versus the current R4 application, which is for 15.2 acres. The map can be displayed if necessary, so we do have that available. Section 5.2.2, location of high-density housing. Council intentions about locating high-density housing are important to residents concerned about potential location of row houses and apartment buildings into their predominantly low-density neighborhoods. To help allay these concerns, council lays out specific policies below on where they may allow future high-density housing, some of which elaborate on their foregoing policies for special planning and development areas. So the location criteria, the existing location criteria, Council's criteria for locating high-density housing in the city of Summerside include the desirability of infilling properties which are already partly developed for higher density housing, the desirability of locating high-density housing close to jobs, community, facilities, and services, and of promoting pedestrian access, opportunities for maximizing the number of opportunities for scenic views through higher density and tolerant residential buildings, but with protection of adequate view planes, benefits of locating higher density housing in difficult to service areas so that they can help distribute expensive development costs among more users, opportunities for innovative mixes of high density housing with other residential development in CDAs, opportunities for recycling older non-heritage residential properties with higher density development, opportunities for apartments in residential or commercial use buildings, and avoidance of negative economic and physical impacts on surrounding land uses, whether existing or proposed. Council's objective is to encourage high-density housing in specific areas, and the following are Council's statements of policy. Number 1, promote high-density housing on properties already partly developed for high-density housing. Number 2, consider applications for high-density housing in the following situations. 3, a mix of housing types in CDAs. 4, areas presently occupied by conforming mobile home parks. And for that, see Council Policy 5.3.2.5. Number 5, rezonings in areas presently designated for medium-density R3 zone residential use. Number 6, areas immediately north of the downtown, defined as Notre Dame Street to the north, Granville Street to the east, Heather Moyse Drive to the south, and Duke Street to the west, subject to no harmful impacts on local heritage housing, and within residential or commercial buildings. Number 7, the downtown D zone, urban core area, all districts. Number 8, city arterial or collector roads as referenced in section 7.1 and figure 7-1. And number 9, consider applications for high-density housing in other areas with careful consideration of Council's location criteria listed above. C, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment, the 64.44 acre site is suitable for development and will be required to be developed as per city bylaws and standards. This application applies to 15.2 acres of the entire site. Parkland dedication for this development will be required upon subdivision. The city will determine if the parkland dedication will be in the form of land dedication or monetary dedication, or a combination of both. D, compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment, with the exception of a ribbon of parkland at the north and south boundaries of this property, the subject property abuts 3 existing land uses. The land use to the north is agricultural, the land use to the west is residential, the land use to the east is conservation and agricultural, and the land use to the south is commercial and residential. There are 2 drainage areas designated as parkland use. Both will remain. The projected land uses will be residential. The existing land uses are compatible with the projected land uses. The subject property is intended to be further subdivided and will be subject to a major subdivision process upon development. The proposed development will be constructed in a phased approach, with the proposed roadways acting as buffers between low and high density residential. E, any comments from residents or other interested persons? Staff comment, a public meeting was held on December 16th, 2024. The public meeting notice was advertised in the December 4th edition of The Guardian. 5 letters were hand-delivered or emailed to 5 property owners. The applicant was represented by Greg Munn, the architect, Robert Craig, and Jen Dew. Greg Munn provided an introduction of the applicant developer, Z&C Flourish International Limited, and an overview of the developments they have developed or are developing in Charlottetown, Montague, and Moncton. Ms. Dew indicated that the housing is aimed to be energy efficient, making the housing more efficient to operate and maintain and thus affordable. Robert Craig spoke to the costs and economics of this and any other development. A number of the public attended the meeting. The following residents spoke at the public meeting. Stacy Thane, 278 Pope, asking how many stories will be developed behind their property. While she had no issue with traffic concerns, she did express concerns regarding pedestrian safety. Emmett Ahern, 41 East Drive, supports the development as we are in a housing crisis and this type of housing forms is needed. He also stated progress such as this development is important to community growth. Steve Boyd, 28 Gavin Court, is concerned about traffic at Greenwood Drive and Pope Road intersection. He and his wife encourage their children to utilize the intersection of Pope Road and McDougall Drive, as they feel this is a safer option with less traffic. He supports a proposed roadway from Berkshire Drive to Central Street as an alternative access to this area. Councillor Snow asked if the city should explore other access options, such as connecting Greenwood Drive to Route 2 as an access to alleviate traffic at Pope Road. Paul Campbell, 334 Greenwood Drive, was mainly in support of the development, providing the connection of Greenwood Drive to Route number 2 remains as is with no access, and supports the Berkshire Drive to Central Street as an alternative access. He also expressed concerns pertaining to pedestrian safety. There's no sidewalk north of Maplewood Drive on Greenwood Drive. Written comments have been reviewed and recorded. See Appendix B of this report. The residents raised concerns such as traffic, pedestrian safety, and impacts on city infrastructure. These concerns are addressed throughout this report. Councillor Duran noted the installation of traffic lights at the intersection of Pope Road and Greenwood Drive will be completed upon arrival of the signal poles. That's still true. F, adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services, city parking and parklands for accommodating the development, and any projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment, rezoning from R1, 2.3 acres, R2, 12.9 acres, resulting in the proposed R4, 15.2 acres, does have a significant change on water supply and on the loading of the sewer mains, a lift station, the treatment plant, and the lagoon. This change in zoning relates to a 1% increase of sewage to the Northumberland Street lift station. This 1% increase in load on the lift station can be equated to a cost of $35,000 to the utility. The city's sewage collection and treatment systems have the capacity to handle the additional loading from the zoning changes, and the city's water supply system has the capacity to handle the additional water demand from this rezoning. The city's water main infrastructure for this development is a 250 millimeter distribution main on Greenwood Drive that loops from Pope Road to Route 2. The city's sewer main infrastructure for this development is a 200 millimeter collection main on Greenwood Drive. Greenwood Drive is a city local street with a capacity of less than 10,000 vehicles per day. See the traffic volume review below this paragraph. Greenwood Drive currently has ditches on both sides of the street with localized infilling on both the west and east sides. The 3 future connection locations to the east may reduce the actual traffic to Greenwood Drive, as the neighboring property to the east will have expected connections to both Central Street and Pope Road. This development has 2 possible drainage ways, one along the south boundary of the development, which flows to Central Street and eventually to the Platte River Basin along the west side of Granville Street. The second drainage way is along the north boundary of the development and flows northeast towards Route 2 near the intersection of Central Street. This drainage way has 2 holding pond areas, which will slow the water velocity, helping with erosion. This drainage way crosses Route 2 through a provincial storm system. The development will require a storm drainage system connecting to these 2 drainage ways. The change in zoning will not affect the drainage for this area. And there is the traffic volume review as well. That's available if anybody would like to review that. Change in traffic volume as a result of rezoning will increase by 880 vehicles per day. For this review, all the development traffic is assumed to exit through Greenwood Drive, but this may change when the neighboring eastern property is developed, which would allow direct connection to Central and Pope Road. Greenwood Drive is a local city street with a capacity of 10,000 vehicles per day. The current volume for this section of Greenwood Drive is 1,431 vehicles per day, approximately based on recent traffic counts completed on this section of street. Based on this total volume of 10,000 vehicles per day, the total volume increases on Greenwood Drive from 1,431 to 3,735 vehicles per day, or 37.5% of the street volume. Total volume increase due to zoning change would be 880 vehicles per day. The approximate percentage increase of volume from this zone changes 8.8% of the total street capacity at full development. The approximate percentage of volume from existing residents currently, 14.3% of the total street capacity at full development. The approximate total capacity of Greenwood Drive would be 37.5% at full development, which is well below the total capacity of a local city street. A traffic study in 2019, Appendix A, completed by WSP Engineering for the intersection, recommended a two-way stop with four left turn lanes to get the best or shortest wait times. This report also stated that a signalized intersection would not be needed until a minimum of 30% more increase in traffic volume occurred in the Pope Road Greenwood Drive area. This intersection was scheduled for upgrades in the 2024-25 budget season and will be completed by the spring of 2025. Utility power will require infrastructure upgrades given the size and density of the development. We can support the start and some early construction, but not the whole development, without upgrading the power grid. Power access is currently available off of circuit number R2 on Greenwood Drive at the location where the new side streets into the proposed development would be built. The development's full scope, about 600 units, is estimated to require 2,400 kilowatts of peak power, and circuit R2 is currently at 3,600 kilowatts peak load with an ultimate capacity for 6,500 kilowatts. Once fully developed, the circuit will be at an estimated 6,000 kilowatts or 92% ultimate capacity, not accounting for any other development or load growth such as home oil to electric heat conversions elsewhere in the city on this circuit. At the 80% level of circuit capacity, about 5,200 kilowatts, the utility needs to begin upgrades to have reserve capacity available for extreme cold weather events such as that existing customers do not lose power in extreme weather. As such, the utility has capacity to start the development, but we will need upgrades before it's fully built out and residents moved into all the properties. Circuit number 2 has capacity for an estimated 300 to 400 new residential units or oil to heat conversions of existing homes, less for larger commercial or industrial properties. The initial projected utility needs, not counting needs within the development. The power line down Greenwood Drive from Pope Road intersection to the subject property entrance is undersized and will need to be upgraded, which consists of 300 to 600 meters of power line, pending which road entrance is used. This upgrade will open up the subject property for early construction development of multiple apartments or smaller structures, but not all 600 units. And long-term, for full development, utility will require feasibility review of circuit reconfigurations or construction of a new circuit. There is an existing park, Maplewood Heights Park, located within 100 meters of the subject development. The park is accessible by street or walkway network. Parkland dedication is calculated depending on the density of the housing, and it will be required at the time of subdivision. G, impacts from the development on pedestrian or vehicular access and safety, and on public safety generally. Staff comment, vehicle access from the development will be in 2 locations: a new 4-way intersection at Greenwood Drive and Berkshire Drive, and proposed North Street of the development, and 1 new 3-way intersection at Greenwood Drive and the proposed South Street of the development. The development concept plan also has 3 proposed connections to the neighboring property to the east, which in the future will have connections to both Pope Road and Central Street, noted above in Section F. The sidewalk will require extensions to be constructed along Greenwood Drive to the high-density buildings as the development phasing proceeds over the expected 10-year phased construction. The development's internal street network will conform to city bylaws and standard specifications and Canadian TAC standards. The street width will be 8.8 meters with curb and gutter. This would require extending the current sidewalk from Maplewood Drive to the new 3-way intersection at Greenwood Drive and the proposed South Street of the development. Cost to do this extension would incur ditch infill on the west side of Greenwood Drive up to the new intersection to be able to construct a sidewalk when it is needed in the future. Costing for approximately 150 meters of sidewalk along the west side of Greenwood Drive would be in the range of $140,000. 2 portions of the subject property are currently zoned as parkland. These areas are existing drainage ways that are necessary to accept drainage from this development and surrounding developments, existing or future. The existing drainage way to the south is intended to accommodate a future pedestrian walkway, the Platte River Greenway, 740, and which is on the map from the Parks and Green Space plan on the following page. allowing pedestrians to walk from Greenwood Drive to Central Street in a safe manner. Deputy Mayor Snow or Councillor Morrison, would you mind reading HIJK? And I can jump back in on the staff review after I relax for a minute. Thank you.
All right. Compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment. The applicant will be required to contact the Department of Environment to have a review of any watercourse wetland areas on the property. The provincial review identifies the level of environmental risk and determines if full environmental assessment is required. Any watercourse wetland area must be identified on the future subdivision plan. No development will be permitted within the watercourse wetland area buffers. The survey plan would also identify any easements, right-of-ways, etc. on the property. There are no compatibility issues regarding scenic or heritage resources. The applicant must meet provincial regulations regarding construction, site runoff, and proximity of watercourses. The future Platte River Greenway will have to be compatible with any environmental matters associated with the south drainage area. I, impacts on city finances and budgets. Staff comment. Costing for 150 meters of future sidewalk along the west side of Greenwood Drive would be approximately $140,000. The 1% increase in load on the Northumberland lift station can be equated to a cost of $35,000 to the utility. The electric utility will need to submit budget requests in future budget years to accommodate this entire development. J, other matters as specified in this bylaw. Staff comment, not applicable. K, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, the layout of the proposed development is subject to major subdivision to allow the subdivision of lands. The preliminary subdivision layout must be reviewed by planning board and approved by council. The street layout must be orderly and following as shown on the city network roadway, indicating future roadway connections in the area. Due to topographical slope of this land, high and center sloping to the south and north, the streets includes road with curbs, water, sewer, and storm. Running east to the west will be required to be constructed first, as streets running south and north will have two connection. That doesn't read right. The two connection into east-west streets. The property at 278 Pope Road, Stacy and Steve Thane, abuts the existing R4 zone. This parcel can be developed to the R4 zone standards as noted on page 3 of this report. Staff review. The city's, you want me to keep going, Justin? Okay.
I had a
Go ahead.
little rest there. Thanks very much for that. Staff review. City staff supports the application for portions of PID number 1163526 to amend the city zoning bylaw from single-family residential R1 zone to high-density residential R4 zone, and from low-density residential R2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone. The proposed R4 zoning at the south and north end of the development. This is sound planning, as the proposed R4 zones abut green spaces, not existing residential properties. The city has passed official plan and zoning amendments, creating a new medium-density land use to allow townhouse or row house, such as structures up to 4 units as of right, but not allow apartment buildings in the existing R1, R2, and R3 zones. As per section 5.10, part B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to council for a final decision. Planning board recommendation, the application received from Z&C Flourish International Limited for the south portion, amendment number 444S1 of PID number 1163526 to amend the city zoning bylaw from low-density mixed residential R2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone, be recommended to be approved by council. I will move that and ask for a seconder from planning board. Deputy Mayor Snow. Yeah, so we can put it on the floor and discuss now, or if there's anything to discuss, or if anybody wants to add anything or ask anything.
Sorry, Bruce, I'm just going
sorry,
to
go ahead.
cut to you in a quick second. I was just going to suggest, Councillor Drawn, do you want to put all of the 3 recommendations on?
Sure.
So we can speak to all of them at the same time as
Sure.
opposed to having to go through
Yep.
one or the other for all comments?
So that was Amendment 444S1. The next one, number 2 of 3, the application received from Z&C Flourish International Limited for the north portion of PID number 1163526, Amendment 444N1, to amend the city zoning bylaw from single-family residential R1 zone to high-density residential R4 zone, be recommended to be approved by council, moved by myself, and I would ask for a seconder from planning board, Councillor Morrison. And finally, the application received from Z&C Flourish International Limited for the north portion of PID number 1163526, Amendment 444N1, to amend the city zoning bylaw from single-family residential R1 zone to high-density residential R4 zone, be recommended to be approved by council, moved by myself and seconded by any member of planning board. His worship, Mayor Dan. Councilor McDougall, did you want to?
Yeah, just, maybe it's in here and I missed it, but, Aaron, the cost of the sidewalk, that we would need to put in, this area is $140,000 at the moment. What about the parkland dedication, the value of that parkland dedication, what would that be for that area total?
We haven't gone to those calculations because we'll get the actual areas when we go to subdivide
Okay.
within the parcels.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to this with saying, again, there's identified a couple of areas that were already land marked there for a pedestrian walkway, and will be considered part of that land as part of that compensation, and then whether it be a cash value back and forth or.
Okay.
But without having the actual surveys, when they go to the next step to actually do a major subdivision, we'll get the actual lot, entire lot areas to do those calculations out for the
Okay.
parkland contribution.
Okay, no, my thought was to direct that parkland dedication fund to that sidewalk.
Well,
Because it's something that.
Your parkland dedication goes in a separate fund for purchasing other lands that you may need for parkland. It's not intended for even equipment or upgrades or anything outside of that. So basically, if
When
we
do we
don't
do
need
that?
land in this one, sorry,
When do we start that?
I've been recommending it for 22 years. So
I know that, but,
just, okay, I'm
yeah,
just,
anyway, I'm not gonna,
Yep.
that's for another day.
yeah. But it's, if we have parkland here, maybe we need to buy a piece of this land to, you would take from that fund to say, okay, look, I need other parkland beyond this or in that area, like, there was, for example, there was an area that you had a ball field and you wanted to buy another strip to, next door to it, so there'd be less chance of balls going next door, you would buy land out of that fund to add on to the ball field or parkland as part of a development that would happen, or you typically try and take it at where you are, or if there's already enough in that area, you bank the money and put that towards other areas that you want to expand on those parklands.
Yeah. I hear you.
It has to be-
You and I have two different opinions, that one.
That's
So
it. We'll make the
that's-
recommendation, you guys do what you do.
The other part too, Aaron, was where you line those, the next subdivision up, there's
Yep.
nothing seems to be meeting on that.
Because this is probably the second or third, I'll say, iteration of concepts for this parcel. The one, we'll wait until Linda pulls it up there.
Yeah.
So the
There.
one in the, we'll say the subject property, that was, we had another previous one that wasn't, I'll say, this person's development concept. So we had a rough concept on there. The next one to the right is an older concept that was there for more than 20 years ago in
Yeah.
order to allow the lift station to go through there. So the intent is to say they're generally there, we'll make them connect.
Right.
But we didn't want to go through and ask the abutting property owner to revise your concept to this one when it's not even confirmed yet until they actually do the subdivision.
Right, and
Yep.
I know that, I just wanted to
Highlight.
bring that up
Yep.
because, to let people know that
Sure, yeah.
that's what would happen.
We're not intended to have them until they actually
No,
go to the subdivision or stage to actually finalize where the roads would be, yeah.
okay, and my final question, these properties are located upper corner, bottom corner. How is the roadway gonna work going into that if they're starting there, they're not starting out on the
They'll have to
front
bring the road from Greenwood Drive into this section.
and up and around?
Well, they'll either bring
Or-
one in the bottom and then
But
bring
one at the top?
at the top in for the other section, and then, as Linda noted, the north-south ones then could be connected in future.
The future, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Bruce actually was on the same line of questions but I do want to confirm the sidewalk part, is that just coming from when it says Maplewood to Greenwood, is it that bottom section?
Right now, that little green dot where Linda has that little green dot.
Yeah.
There exists a sidewalk now to Maple Grove Road, to Maple.
Yeah, so that's short distance, not
That
the-
exists now. That's what exists now. There is a sidewalk there, so I guess staff are saying if they go as far as the First Street, we would provide sidewalk to get up through your, I'll say your capital project plan, whenever you start saying, okay, where are we putting sidewalks? From where it exists now to that first intersection would get you to that first block of high-density R4 housing, which is where we try and target our sidewalks right now.
Yep,
That cost was to get it from where it exists now just to that first
to
intersection.
that possible new first intersection. But, so, to Bruce's point where we were just talking about, we don't know where they develop first, if they develop the upper R4 or the bottom R4.
We'll get you a cost to do it all the way then to the next intersection.
So since our first meeting, I've had multiple discussions with some of Councillor Duran's constituents and just met them around the area walking, either in the cup or in the store or whatever. And that seemed to be one thing that kept coming up, is that main road into Greenwood and the need for sidewalks into that area. I've always said, anytime we're doing major developments like this, I think we need to be forward-thinking to look at that, because that would ease a lot of the concern, not all of it, but a lot of the concerns of the residents. And there's a park, is it Maplewood Park, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah, Maplewood Park that's in that area, so you're gonna have residents trying to get to that area, and the issue is still gonna be there of cars coming. So I would hope or recommend that if we are moving forward with this, we really be more forward thinking. I know there's costs and implications to that, but if you're gonna be putting sidewalks anywhere in the city, when you're doing a major development, that seems to be the point and the time to be doing it, so you're helping the residents that are currently living there with some of the issues they're having, but then also making it make sense for the massive amount of growth in that area. So I just wanted to make sure, I figured it was that bottom portion when we said 140,000. But then when you do add the
Then
first units might be.
when you get into the new streets that are in blue, those streets, as was noted by staff, would be 8.5 meters wide, not just 2 lanes. So there is one extra width there that's either used for walking or one side parking.
Yeah.
So they're not like on some of the older areas that had, I know they don't have sidewalk, but they're walking now on a shoulder versus this would be a paved shoulder
Right.
on one side. So that's why they're saying at least get it to the first part.
Yeah.
And if the internal network is done, they're walking on a wider asphalt surface than existing Greenwood Drive.
Okay, perfect. And then the other question that Councilor McDougall had around the road network, just so I'm clear. So you have that road coming off, is it Berkshire, that goes straight across.
Yeah.
If this was to be approved, we would then go to the person that owns the land next door and make them align to that one coming off
Correct.
Berkshire.
Whenever
So
they-
it'd be a
whenever-
straight line.
Or it may be a jog that we don't
Yeah.
have. It'd be okay if it came into the first one there and actually teed in, so we'd have less actually having a straight through, which have a tendency to be a shortcut from there. If it's some ways connections that they're not direct,
Right.
we tend to have less shortcutting through, but.
Yep.
But the intent would be this property would provide 2 connections on Greenwood Drive. 2 or 3 is shown there, but until we get into the final designs, there would at least be 2 to the east, and the eastern properties would connect to those locations.
And I assume this would change depending on who you talk to in the area, because sometimes, depending, but it was evident from some of the comments that having that one exit out of there, although there's a couple, but that one exit out was an issue to them. So getting that second one over to Central, because I remember mentioning out to the highway as a possible solution, but that was quickly shot down by one resident, which is fine, but maybe there's others that would like it. I don't know. I just think, as my point to all these comments is, as we're going through these bigger developments, we got to think of how we grow that network, not just putting something in
Yeah.
and not giving any forethought.
So the other question you had raised was on the existing Berkshire subdivision. Down on Pope Road, there's 2 light green dots that shows there's 2 existing exits out of that subdivision. And up on the top was when the rest of the property develops, the remaining parcel of land that's vacant field, part of that stubs out to East Drive now, and a part of it touches on the end of I'm not sure what the correct name on the French school street is, but the French school street, that's not a private street, that's a public street to there. So the city street network would connect onto that and provide that subdivision 4 exits out of there regardless of what happened here. So they would go from 2 to 4 as it's developed.
So on that, what determines when we will put that road network in? How do we?
When that individual landowner chooses to develop that property. That's in I'll say the remaining parcel of, they did do one little section there, the completion of, and they did a loop around 10, 12 lots a couple of years ago. So that's up now. It's up to them, individual landowner, when they choose to, we'll say, here's your concept, but you have to connect over to there at these existing points. Like it does right now end at Rebecca as well. That field ends at Rebecca, and the field ends at Acadian. So there's 2 existing stubs to that field already, plus there'll be 2 more out to the potential of the streets.
Okay. I think
So
that's
there is
it
an
for now.
overall master plan of connecting where things would go, and a lot of people didn't realize the French School Street was an actual city street, but it's been that way since originally when they just subdivided one lot off it to put one large lot to put the French school there, and then it stubs at the end of, it used to be the Hately property, it was a Hately farm. All of that Gavin's chunk was the Ron Hately farm, I think was the Bruce. They just took off.
I like seeing these road networks or future growth plans I know I benefit from it. It gives you a little bit of vision, but thanks, Aaron. Thanks.
Hey, Councillor Justin, I just wondered, we did receive some emails, and I'm just wondering, are you going to speak to any of those emails that came in?
I can. I mean, usually when we receive them after the first meeting, we all receive them, or if we don't all receive them, I'll forward them, or they're always forwarded to us. So we have them. I can.
Okay. It's just
I
that
can
I
use
have a
them
couple
whenever.
of questions on one that came in on July the 18th, and I just want to clarify a couple of things, if that's permissible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
July the 18th?
Did I say July? January.
June.
January 18th, sorry. I wish it was July. No, it was received on January the 18th, and it was sent to all of council. But the point that was made by the resident was they're going by the fact that the city and council had made the decision to do the R1 and R2, that we were going to do that. But what they've noticed is now the changes, and they do have a concern that it has been changed to go to the R4. One of the questions that I have been asked is, I think some of the residents felt that there was going to be development done for R1 and R2 before even going to anything R4. So that's one question. Another thing that came out of it was that the point was made that there are several reasons why we feel the zoning in this particular development stay in accordance to the last recent council decision in regards to this land. So I think there's some questions around that. Why are we going to an R4? It's already been brought up about there's only one exit or entrance at this point. And I know at the last meeting, some people did indicate that they weren't really overly interested in having that exit or entrance going on to the highway. So I guess what I'm wondering is, and I don't want to, be repetitive, but the point that is made here, they mentioned that there's one development that they do not plan on doing developments with further apartments because of the market. There's been a decline. Also, there's supposed to be a decrease in immigration in 2025. So I think the question that came out of her email is, so why are we in a rush to see this happen when there is those types of decreases that we're looking at? Another point that has been made, and whether it's fact or fiction, we don't know, but there's definitely changes coming, And is the city going to end up with developments ongoing where we might not have that housing accelerator funding coming in if there's any kind of a stall to the development? So I have promised that I would ask those questions on behalf of the residents, and in particular this one that came in. Final point that this resident has made, with all of you getting a copy of it, she points out that there has been a recent retirement of 3 family doctors. And as a result of that, that's not going to be an easy fix, because there's going to be thousands of residents without health care. And with all of that happening, the increase in the demand on overcrowding in schools, I think they're looking at all of those things about, are we going to have the infrastructure to meet any continued growth? And so I've said that I would bring that up in the public portion of the meeting on their behalf.
Perfect, thank you, Councillor McCollum. I think just to, I guess, respond to that, many of those concerns regarding the sort of the volume of high-density apartments, I think were somewhat addressed this time around. I know the first application, I think, was originally for, what, like 14 or 15 buildings, and now it's been significantly reduced down.
Yeah, we listed the acreage there. We can pull that map up for you if you want. But
Not the acreage, but like just the number of
But
apartment
even-
buildings
yeah.
was.
there was also another, as you look at that sketch there, we'll go back to it, no worries, no. As part of, I'll say the total eastern boundary, now we have 2 pockets at the top and the bottom. The original proposal also included the entire eastern limit was to be apartments, even though the other remaining parcel was going to be R4 as well.
Yeah.
And so they've decreased, or say eliminated the entire eastern limit. The question on the R1 and R2, as far as the land drains, there's 2 green areas that exist are the natural drainage of the land now for stormwater. That's also going to be the natural drainage of the land for the sanitary sewer system. So you can't develop the middle part first, because the sewer system has to be all the way developed down to the lower location. So their determination is we're going to develop around where we have to put the extra expensive infrastructure of a lift station in, or additional sanitary main, is why they've targeted this area, besides their own interests on what they feel the market is, are to compared to the R4 or high density type of developments. So they have to develop first. If not, they're going to have expensive infrastructure that's going to go up from the middle part, R1, R2, and then have to drain it down and put a lift station that's nowhere close to. I'm just answering some of your questions. I don't have answers to.
Yeah, and I know at our last meeting, Robert, you were explaining that another reason for building the apartments first was just simply due to the fact that I think like the CMHC doesn't provide financing for single-family homes.
They weren't targeting R1 and R2. They were targeting R4 developments.
So these apartment buildings would kind of serve as, some ability to finance that next phase.
And we typically don't, I'll say, determine the demand. We just try to provide the land masses of each type that are there, so when the demand for whichever unit type is available can be built. And we've done very few single family in the last 2 to 3 years, and more semis and rows and apartment buildings. So it could change, but the current cost of single family housing and the mortgage rate to go with it is predetermined that we're not getting a lot of single family type of developments in Summerside in the last 2 to 3 years. So when that shifts, land is available to build that type if it's already rezoned, and we're just trying to provide the land masses that are available for whatever the market brings or the developer decides.
And the city also doesn't dictate I know Councillor McCormick, you referenced the email, but the email referenced sort of how the pace of what's getting developed. So it's really up to developers how quickly they want to build a set of buildings, right? Like
They've indicated that this
dictate
was a 5 to 10 year
Yeah.
project on this property based on their initial projections.
Yeah, I was, just to your point, in the email it says, why are we in a rush, indicating council?
Yeah.
We have nothing to do with this application other than hearing the application and deciding whether or not it's a fit or not. So I think sometimes, I find if we actually have honest conversations with our constituents and residents when they bring questions forward, if we know the answer. I think that goes a long way to say, you know what, we are not in a rush. We're listening to the facts and
Yeah.
making a decision based on that, so.
Yeah. But we also, on that point, and Councillor Morrison will be next, we did express, as a council, the fact that we did have our housing needs assessment done recently, and it did point out the fact that we have, you know, certain targets for certain years, and we've met our target, or we have been meeting our targets for 1-2 unit apartments, and we acknowledge that. So there is that focus on our end to try to sort of promote the 3-4 unit types of developments. We certainly can't dictate what developers build, but we can sort of, like I said, promote that missing middle that we've been referring to it as. Councillor Morrison?
Yeah, I was just going to mention the point that some of the concerns that I'd seen and read, and people are right about the cutting the immigration by 50% or something in 2025, but people are only looking a year or two down the road, while these developers are looking at 5, 10, and 15 years down the road. So they're not just worried about 2025. This project could be going on in 2035 and longer. So it's just to remind people that, yeah, you know, things might have changed in the last year or so, but they're going to change again. And they're just preparing for the future. And if they want to take their hard-earned money and develop in Summerside, I think it's great.
Thank you. I had a few questions, but I guess they were answered along the way, mostly about sidewalks. And I'm glad that we covered from that extra portion after Maplewood to the top. If we could get a finalized number and how much roughly that would cost, that would be great. I guess last time when it came forward, I don't want to say it's an issue because it's not an issue, but I guess my thought process is that we just put 8 months worth of pushing that missing middle development of townhouses and row houses. And we have already said, not to the exact same thing, but no to this development once. Granted, it was quite a bit larger. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me as to why we would do this now when the focus really is on bigger apartment buildings, when we have made a huge shift in the last 8 months to look at the 3 and 4 unit townhouses, row houses, and smaller apartments. I just think that this right now doesn't necessarily coincide with the plan that we have all sat down and discussed for 8 months very publicly. So I'm finding it very hard to understand why we would do this at this time, I guess.
Sure. I guess I got 5 points or questions for staff, but I guess one thing for the developers, and this is, I noticed that they mentioned a few times, like they want to base it on community needs and community needs. So this is more directed toward the developers. I think there's 3 community needs that I've heard, and we've all pretty heard what's the needs. It's affordable housing. So when you're developing, you're looking at those large apartments or looking at how to fix the missing middle, trying to make the apartments or housing so it's affordable. And another one too is in terms of looking at if there's any opportunity to partner or private partner, private-public with community care facilities. Anything that would really get me excited. I know it's probably a little tangent, but being able to do that, bring that into the community, because we know that would help. We're looking at the health system, help clear up beds, and there could be an opportunity there to really provide value added to the community. So if that ever crosses your mind, being able to do that, that'd be wonderful. And these are hopefully just 5 really short points for staff. I'm going to be the third one to weigh in. That sidewalk, love to have that costed right up to Berkshire. I think that's extremely important, especially when you're looking at high density. Parkland dedication, Aaron, I'm just wondering, could that be used to, I don't know, fast track or put the Platte River Greenway?
Yes.
Would that be, because it seems really appropriate.
And that's what you're into developing that
Yeah.
portion of land there that you're actually designated, I think right now it might even be designated parkland. That first piece on this parcel is designated parkland below it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I'd love to see that being developed for sure. I'm curious about the numbers though, because I know during the last presentation, we struggled to actually get the numbers of the number of apartment buildings. So based on the staff's numbers, as 216 units, does that mean 5 apartments that are 24 units each? 9 apartments at 24 units, sorry?
I think we go back to the sketch for the buildings. There appears to be 4 buildings on the lower property and then 3 on the top, is 7 buildings, so
7.
now there's also
There's,
a few buildings that are, if you drag the screen up, I don't touch, that the other way, sorry.
yeah.
I don't know if they included these buildings here, but this property is already zoned R4.
That's
That
right.
pocket that's there is already zoned R4. He
That's
might
right.
have had those in his total projections of traffic based on that intersection.
Yeah, I
if
was
they're-
curious.
if-
Yeah, I was curious because I can see
Yeah.
R1 and R2 are added for traffic. So I was curious if these figures also include the existing R4 for
Yeah,
traffic count.
I believe so, yeah, that, yeah.
Because by that numbers, if you're looking at 9, so then at 24 units a piece. Now, is that just figures that you as a staff just brought forward, or is that what you got from the developers? I was curious.
Staff would have looked at the submission and tried to apply how many units are in per building, and that's,
Okay. And I guess I'm only asking because I
Yeah.
know we asked, that question was asked a couple times, and we
Yeah.
never really got that answer.
Yeah.
So I'm just
total,
happy.
total number of units, or the?
Yeah, the
in
total
the
number of
R4?
units or a number of apartment buildings, so I'm just curious how
It-
staff,
But it may still change. I guess when it came back to where his numbers were, he still was at 37% of the entire 10,000, say, on a local street volume. That, it wasn't like he was cresting close to maxing out. And I think when he done his numbers and saying, look, there was still lots of room for.
oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to
Yep.
figure where the numbers, where did staff get the numbers? Because I know we struggled to get numbers, that's all.
I think it was just going by this concept of a building and saying if they're,
24 per apartment.
or if it's 12. Yeah.
Okay, all right, no, thanks. The environmental review, I know it's probably standard that at this point, you need to have the entire, I guess, subdivision plan, have that first. But the concept plan has the street passing right through parkland. So in my head, I almost feel I would like to have, before council vote, I would like to have at least the baseline, that does the province say, we need to have a review before approving it? Or, because unlike some projects where they might just abut it, there's actually a street that's passing above it, on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know this
Well,
is my first time doing this, so.
Right now, the parcel that's across that, we're not approving the street layout here. We're approving the pocket that's north. If they don't allow that connection across there, they can still rezone the 4 that are in bright green. They'll just have to have a connection to the south piece. We're here today looking at the rezoning or changing of the zone of that land, not finalizing the lot layout of the road network.
Okay,
Yeah.
for me, I do struggle a little bit because because then we're looking at how traffic flows from that, I guess that parcel, the bottom one wouldn't be developed then, I guess, if there's
Or
no
they'd have to
road.
wait until the abutting parcel, that's the neighboring property.
Okay.
You can see their existing development off of Pope Road, there's still room for vacant land there for it to connect into that, so we would
That's
make
true.
it, so if they do not allow that connection across that, it shows that there is a water, it's dry most of the
Yeah,
time
I
until it rains, but it's still maybe considered a water course or a wetland area. And they would bring forward those proposals to say, how am I gonna service that block of land and get permission from the environment to do that? If it doesn't, we'll have to look at other ways of attaching or accessing that parcel from the abutting property owner.
Yeah, sure. I don't know
Yeah.
what's a typical process, so for me, I don't know, I'd like to know what the department would say before. It's just not as straightforward as some, which is just abutting, this is traveling over, and how does that
Yeah.
work, but that's okay.
And we're just kind of highlighting to the property owner that when you go to come in forward for your next level of development, we're going to need to know where the limits of this is where we think the limits of the parkland are. We just want to advise them at this stage when you got your rezoning, when you go to the next stage, we're going to need to know where the limits of the wetland are.
That's right. And just on that theme, sorry, I know the lot land is looking at, is it a 4 meter?
Sorry,
4 meter, I guess, buffer between the lots? And so if there's a buffer between the environment, let's say the environment says is that buffer added on to what we have? Like the space between, if you're looking at the lot, the side and rear lot, the space between.
Okay.
I think it's 4 meters. Is that?
Okay, that's just from the boundary line.
Thank you, yeah, the boundary line. So would that boundary line then be added on to the buffer since it's close to the Greenland, or how does that work?
Go ahead.
So normally the buffer would be greater than that 4 meters?
Yes, yeah.
So 4 meters is still from where the property line is, which in this case, the property line is actually dependent upon where they develop their lots. So the 4 meters would be from this lot line, but there's still a requirement. So normally what happens when they come into subdivision here, they will actually have to get this marked and delineated, the wetland area, and that will determine their boundary pretty much.
Yeah, that would, because the
Yeah.
buffer would be bigger than
Yep,
the.
and so
okay.
they can't build within that buffer.
Okay, perfect. No, thank you. Yeah, and the only other comment, I think on page 9, when we're looking at the transit study, it's referencing the 600 units, but I think that's taken from the previous plan as opposed to the,
Yeah.
whatever we're at here. I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, the current plan. That's the only, I guess, grammatical comment there.
In the electrical part, yes.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Okay, no, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trenholm. Your Worship.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I'll be brief here. First, to staff, I think you've presented a thorough report to Planning Board here. I think this is the best report to Planning Board, at least I've seen in the past 2 years. I know we always get sometimes mixed into subdivision approvals and what buildings look like and away from what we're looking at here, the land use, but I wanted to just commend you for the work here that you put in, and particularly the work around the mapping and certainly the in-depth consideration of some really important pieces. Most of my comments have been touched on here as well, primarily as they relate to sidewalks. Vehicles per day, I'm just going through my questions here. Number 5. Another sidewalk question. Just bear with me. Oh, a question here, first one that hasn't been addressed. I've been asked to review this under the existing official plan. We have council approved changes to our official plan and introduced and passed a new zoning bylaw on October 20th, 2024. Which will now be going on 3 months, and we have not received the signatures back from the province. And my question is, I would hope and anticipate that the province will execute that document and get that back to us so we can continue to build housing here in our community, because we have a number of projects starting to line up under that. My question is, if the minister approves the official plan and the new zoning bylaw, will we have to return to planning board? There are no changes then, or there's no alternate considerations that we'd have to look at?
For this one?
Yeah,
Not that we're aware of, no,
Okay.
they.
okay, that's fine. Next question to Councillor McColman's raising the email with comments from a member of the public. I don't have a record of that from January 18th. I don't have any emails from January 18th.
I remember it. Yeah, I read it, but it wasn't in the packet.
Just as a member of planning board, I don't know, Councillor, if you can send it around so we can make sure to review it. Yeah, if you can just send it and, or send it to staff and we can make sure that it's included with any other public comments on this.
Actually, I'm just
file.
looking at it now. It was sent to everyone but the mayor.
Okay, well, there you go. Point taken. Yeah, I'd like to read, I do need to read it as a member of planning board. Next, I just wonder if, when this returns to council, if that's where it goes next, if we can have representative from the electric utility, because I certainly have some more secondary questions on the long-term plans for our electric utility and how the future potential development may impact that. And then the last, I struggle with the same thing that Councillor Cameron raised. We spent a number of months here working really hard to make sure that we made significant changes both to our official plan and our zoning bylaw to promote and create more missing middle housing. We know we have a shortage of housing, particularly in the 3-bedroom plus and in the variety of options in between large multiplexes and single unit dwellings. And that is in our official plan, and that is in the revised official plan. And so if that official plan is approved between now and when this may come to council, I would certainly encourage all of council, we would certainly be under requirement to consider that. And that's where I sit and struggle with this, because at this point, I don't see that here. If it is a means to an end in order to create the R3 housing, I'll just leave that at that. So those are my general comments. Thanks, Councillor. Just for members of the public as well, we are in a planning board meeting. It should be wrapping up any minute here. And then we'll take a quick 2-minute recess and start our council meeting, which starts here at 6:30.
Okay, yeah, so I guess all that I have to say on it, when it comes to the new sidewalk and the ditch infilling on Greenwood in order to satisfy these developments, I do support this 100%, and I appreciate the fact that it was included. I also wanted to highlight something that Planning Board is soon bringing to Council, and that is a policy on complete streets. So to very quickly summarize this proposed policy that should be presented to Council hopefully next month, it would mean that all new developments would or could require sidewalks. So that will hopefully satisfy the lack of sidewalks that would be now from that south entrance up until to the new north entrance. So that's just a possibility there as well. So there would be sidewalk access from the south entrance through the development up to Berkshire. So that'll be interesting to see that come forward, hopefully within the next month or two. I didn't receive near as many emails or calls as I did when these properties were before us the first time. But the things I did hear this time around, less about the actual developing of the land itself and more about the traffic and pedestrian safety, sprinkled with a few concerns around what the plans are for the middle, the non-R4 areas. Keeping in mind that this is an application for what we'll call the outer perimeter, the R4, it is important for residents to have somewhat of a clear picture of the future for the whole development in order for them to buy into the present. So that does mean looking at the entire development, not just the R4. I appreciate that Jen and Robert are here again this evening. I know you've been making efforts to make compromises and meet with the community members, and I don't think that's going unnoticed. I would like to share just a couple, I'll call them suggestions, and maybe Jen, Robert, Linda, Aaron, there's no need to respond tonight, but if you wanted to shoot an email over the next coming days, and I can share with everyone. Certainly no obligation to do so, but I would like to submit these suggestions just for the record and also as a way to help this move forward in a positive way for all. And these are based on conversations that I've had with residents over the last few weeks. I wonder if it would ever be realistic or feasible to build, to include, and again, I am talking about the middle portion, relevant, I think. If it would ever be possible to build some like affordable like spec homes on the non-R4 zone land, maybe help the future tenants possibly become owners, like a rent-to-own type program. I know that you Jen and Robert, I know you mentioned that your goal is to create communities and have your developments integrate into the existing community, and that's a really nice way to do that, I think. I know your website shows, Councillor Cameron, this might satisfy your itch somewhat, about 20 single-family dwellings, 20 or so duplexes, and then the rest 3 to 4 units. So I was just kind of wondering if there's a possibility to maybe develop and sell so that it's not all rentals. I think the missing middle should be about helping people make the move to home ownership, not necessarily just renting. But so I'll just kind of leave those comments there, and if anybody wants to address them, certainly no need to do so, but I wanted to put them out there, and just wanted to try to get a bit of clarity, I think, going forward to get into that final decision at the next meeting. So that's all I have. If anybody else has anything else. Councilor McDougall?
Yeah, just one thing, and I know there was some residents walked in here just recently. So, Aaron, what I'd like, if you could explain again, you explained earlier, why they're doing these two spots first, because of the lift station and that type of thing, could you, why they're starting there? and
Right
not-
where on the picture that's on there, the entire subject property, right where it says subject property, that land is actually higher than the rest of it.
Right.
The area that's green on both sides are two low areas,
Right.
and that's where the current topography goes, which means that's where all the gravity, say storm and rainwater goes to. That's also where the sanitary system is going to have to follow as well. And in order to get the sanitary sewer system, they're either going to have to partner with the abutting property owner and put a sanitary sewer system all the way over to Central Street, or they'll have to put a lift station into that property. And that's a large expense other than just a cost on the street frontage. So they're targeting the areas that are close to the higher infrastructure to make those feasible first, to develop close to that. And then their plan was to go to the middle area and develop, as you referred to, your missing middle type of stuff that would be currently within the existing or the proposed zoning R1, R2 type of developments, a mix of those type of developments, which was their, but they have to target those areas because of the general topography of the land
Right.
now and the expense of, which is another reason why the high density stuff, in order to pay for that existing infrastructure, you know, on the, potentially even a second one on the top portion.
Good, thanks, I appreciate that. I just wanted to, in case they had missed it, thanks.
Okay, should I read the recommendations again, or they're already on the floor? I guess we can read them one at a time. Okay, and then we'll move on to our regularly scheduled program.
I might just need to-
Sorry?
should we? Just the third recommendation, we just had a typo in there.
Okay.
It says R1 to R4, and really it was the R2 to R4 section.
Okay.
Oh, 444 N2.
I'll change
So
it.
the amendment there is 444 N2 to amend the city zoning bylaw from low-density mixed residential R2 to high-density R4.
Okay.
One section had a bit of R1 and R2 in it.
Got it. Okay, so we'll go back to the first one. The application received from ZNC Flourish International Limited for the south portion, amendment number 444S1 of PID number 1163526 to amend the city zoning bylaw from low-density mixed residential R2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone, be recommended to be approved by council. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow. All in favor, members of Planning Board, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Planning Board recommendation, application received from ZNC Flourish International Limited for the north portion of PID number 1163526, amendment 444N1, to amend the city zoning bylaw from single-family residential R1 zone to high-density residential R4 zone. Be recommended to be approved by council, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Morrison. All members of the Planning Board in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? His Worship Mayor Kuchar is the nay. And Planning Board recommendation, the application received from ZNC Flourish International Limited for the north portion of PID number 1163526, amendment 444N2, to amend the city zoning bylaw from single-family resident,
That's the one, low-density
yeah,
mixed.
I just didn't put the, yeah, low-density mixed residential R2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone, be recommended to be approved by council. Moved by myself and seconded by Mayor Kuchar. All members of Planning Board in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? His Worship Mayor Kuchar.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just one question. I know most people know that it's just the planning board that votes at this stage.
Yes.
I wonder if you could explain that, because there's people sitting here and some of us aren't voting, and they probably think we're being.
I will, and I always,
Thank you.
I always do anyway, just to make sure. Yeah, so this, the Planning Board meeting, which is the second of 3 meetings, voting members of Planning Board are myself, Councillor Morrison, Deputy Mayor Snow, Mayor Kuchar. So that vote that just took place was the vote to basically bring this into the next and final meeting, which will be a meeting of council where the final decision will be made. And that will be taking place on February the 4th. That is our regular committee of the whole meeting, so I suspect we'll have a special council meeting that night. So February 4th at 5 p.m. And so that's when council as a whole will make the final decision on this application.
Okay. And I want to thank you for stating that, because some of the residents, particularly from that neighborhood area, have come in and possibly they didn't realize that the meeting 4:31 had changed and the 5:30 meeting had that information, and they might have missed it. Thanks.
Yeah. So I always try to hopefully explain as clear as possible the whole procedure.
Thank you, Counselor. Chair of Planning Board, with that, we'll adjourn our Planning Board meeting for the evening, and we'll move into our monthly council meeting, but we're just going to take 2 quick minutes, and then we'll get fired in. great. All right, we'll keep going here. I'll do the welcome again since most of you weren't here. Welcome everyone here to beautiful City Hall, our historic chambers in beautiful downtown Summerside for our monthly council meeting of January 20th, 2025. I will call our meeting to order here at 6:47 p.m. Apology for those of you who are joining us in person and online. Our planning board meeting went approximately 15 minutes over its scheduled time. To begin, I'll call for a motion to approve the agenda as presented from a member of council. Councillor McDougall, second. Councillor Cameron, all in favor of the agenda as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Any changes, revisions, deletions? Hearing none, we'll proceed as presented. This is the time for any member of council to declare a conflict with respect to any item on the agenda before you this evening. There are no conflicts declared by council. At this point, we will move to approve the following meeting minutes of the monthly council meeting of December 16th, 2024, and the in-camera council meeting of December 16th, 2024. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Councillor Snow, second. Councillor Duran, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any changes, revisions, deletions? Hearing none, the minutes are carried. At this point, I open the floor for any member of council to bring forward any accolades or recognitions in the community from the past month. Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have one. The Federation of PEI Municipalities Executive Director, John Dewey, is retiring on January 31st. And John has been the executive director there for the last 20-some years, has done a great job. He's been a great friend of municipalities and worked really hard. We're having an open house for John on the afternoon, 1 to 3, I believe it is, or 1 to 4, on January 31st, so if anybody would like to drop in. So just want to say thank you to John, so that's great.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. At this point, we'll move into public presentations, petitions, and delegations. We have 3 presentations here before us, Council. Presentations can come from members of the public. They can also come from staff departments. We have the Summerside Village being represented by Elysha Whitlock, Generation XX with Gordie Whitlock, and then we have our Department of Economic Development overview from Mike Thususka. From members of the public, our various departments throughout the city provide regular updates to council. I think our last council meeting was Summerside Police Department, and tonight we'll have the Economic Development team. I'd ask the presenters to try and keep within that sort of 15-minute timeline. We still have a number of items on for the rest of the evening, and certainly like to get out of here before at a reasonable hour. So with that, I'll call 4A. I will invite up Elysha Whitlock, Executive Director for Summerside Village, to make a presentation and to share comments and look for questions from council. Elysha?
All right. I respect and appreciate the time frame, so I prepared it ahead of time so I can stay under the 15-minute mark. All right. Honorable Mayor, City Council members, and esteemed community leaders. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to address a critical issue affecting some of the most vulnerable members of our community. The need for a warming center that operates outside of traditional emergency shelter hours. As we all know, winter can be especially harsh and dangerous time, especially for those that are experiencing homelessness. In our city, the cold weather can quickly become life-threatening, especially when the temperature drops below freezing. While our new amazing emergency shelter provides essential services during the hours of 5 p.m. until 8 a.m., their hours of operation typically leave many individuals without a safe, warm place to go during the day. The risk of hypothermia and frostbite remain the same during both the day and night, during our cold winter months especially. We all recognize that our shelter is doing valuable work to meet the immediate needs of our unhoused neighbors. However, without access to a warming center during the day, many individuals are forced to seek shelter in unsafe places, including and not limited to our public streets, local businesses, and, in some sad cases, abandoned buildings. These conditions can lead to severe health consequences, including frostbite, hypothermia, and in some cases, sadly, death. I believe that our city has the resources and the capacity to do more. I did originally have that worded as do better. I changed it to more because I want everybody here to know, I know that all of you were rooting for the shelter, and we appreciate that greatly. A warming center that operates outside of the traditional shelter hours would provide a critical service for our community. It would give people a safe, warm place to rest during the times when they need it the most, particularly when the temperatures are dangerously low. This service would not only prevent life-threatening cold-related injuries, but it would also offer individuals experiencing homelessness a sense of dignity, security, and humanity. Such a center could be designed as a temporary respite space, perhaps a low-barrier facility that offers basic warmth, seating, hot drinks, ensuring that people have somewhere to go when they are at their most vulnerable. It could be open during the daytime hours, from roughly 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., which is generally when the gates do open at our new emergency shelter. We could also look at partnerships with local community organizations, faith-based groups, and volunteers who are already committed to supporting our unhoused population. I speak for myself as well as our over 37 loyal volunteers when I say that our organization would 100% be willing to assist in some sort of capacity to ensure the safety and well-being of our city's most vulnerable. I'm sure some of you are looking at me and wondering how we can afford this. My question in return, how can we afford not to? When we allow people to suffer in the cold, we are not only failing in our moral responsibility, but we're also inviting long-term health care costs that can be avoided with proactive intervention. In addition, there are many cities across our country who are already implementing warming centers, and they have proven to be effective in reducing cold weather injuries and deaths. A few examples of the provinces that currently offer warming centers: British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland and Labrador. While one may argue that these larger cities certainly have more options and financial resources to provide warming centers, we can also see in a sampling of smaller communities based in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, all of which have populations significantly smaller than the city of Summerside. They have shown compassion and initiative to provide warming centers during the frigid winter months. Some examples of these smaller communities are New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, Kentville, Nova Scotia, St. Stephen, New Brunswick, and Bathurst, New Brunswick. The cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of providing a temporary solution to our unhoused neighbors. We know that access to warmth, even for a few hours, can absolutely save lives. I urge this council to prioritize funding and support for the creation of a warming center outside of emergency shelter hours. Together, we can help ensure that no one in our city has to suffer in the cold, and that we are fostering a community where compassion and care are at the heart of our policies and practices. Thank you for your time and attention to this urgent matter. I look forward to your support in making our city a warmer, safer place for everyone. I also kind of missed the deadline to submit a media piece to be shown on the screen, but I did. It took me a while. I had to reach out to a previous client of ours to get permission to use this photo, and she did give me full permission to share this with everybody here. This is a client that was residing at our new emergency shelter. This photo was taken between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she could no longer be at the shelter. A lot of people living unhoused also have trust issues with leaving their belongings, so as you could see, the option was there to leave her belongings there, but due to having personal belongings misplaced, stolen, or lost previously, she wasn't comfortable doing that. This is how she sought warmth, from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. This is outside the Dollarama on Granville Street. I spent 4 hours with this individual in my car because I didn't have the heart to drive away. I kept her in my car until the gates opened. and then I delivered her to the shelter. Since this photo was taken, our nonprofit organization, The Village, has assisted with ensuring this person now has permanent long-term housing. She is no longer accessing the shelter, and she is no longer living on the streets of Summerside. But this is one of many. We still have a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Elysha. Do we have questions, comments from members of council?
Yeah,
Councillor Duran?
Yeah, just, I know you mentioned, obviously, the desire to have a daytime warming center. Is it possible for us to, in the very least, initiate a conversation with the province? The shelter's there. I don't think we need anything built. The question is before us. Can we try to find an answer, at least, to see if there's any desire or ability for the province to partner with us or other organizations to see if using that existing facility might be an option for such a request? Is that realistic?
I would hope it would be. I will tell you too, Justin, that prior to arriving here, I did receive an update from the emergency shelter. Over the next 3 days, they are implementing 24/7 services.
Good, yeah.
But that is for the current people accessing the shelter services. I wish it could be spread further and perhaps just over the colder days specifically, really all days throughout the winter, if they could possibly open even throughout the day for anybody within the community that needs to seek warmth and shelter. So we're hoping that there's an answer somewhere, but it's truly becoming heartbreaking. I have no doubt that every single one of you drive through Summerside once a day and see at least one homeless person. There's no way on this earth you don't. And I know that everybody probably shares the same feelings when you do see them. We all wish we had the magical solution and the magical answers here to solve this. But I'm just holding out hope that maybe as people kind of come together and bounce ideas around and we can figure something out. Because I honestly, last winter, when you all saw me all over the news, scattering those red fishing tents everywhere, I honestly thought I was just filling a gap. I didn't think the village would still be in existence this winter. That wasn't my goal was that once we had that emergency shelter, our services wouldn't be of need anymore. And here I am for the second winter. We've just launched all of the red fishing tents out again. As of today, I have 27 people sleeping in tents with either propane or butane heaters just to avoid the health consequences of not having even minimal heat. I just think there's got to be an answer somewhere.
And maybe that isn't the answer, the existing facility, but there's no
It wouldn't hurt to
loss
look
to
in. Yeah,
check it out, right?
absolutely. It wouldn't hurt to investigate it further and see if that wouldn't be an option.
Thank you, and thank you, Elysha, for your presentation. It's a situation that, a lot of us, like you said, I go through town quite often, and you do see them. I agree with Councillor Duran there. It's hopefully we can do something. I was just wondering if you had reached out to your local MLAs or the province in any way to get assistance?
We have tried
Okay.
to no avail.
Yeah, and so, no, it's something that we need to discuss here, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Sure, yeah, I would certainly support opening up this discussion to try to figure out what we can do. This is this time of year. I do think that the shelter, again, I think advocating for it to be open 24 hours needs to happen, with also wraparound services. But I do think for those people, because there's only 10 beds there, so having a warming center, whatever we can do and develop, I'd certainly be willing to sit on any ad hoc committee or anything like that we so decided to put forward, or just to get this quickly figured out. What can we do and how can we partner and maybe find some funding? So.
Thanks, Elysha, for your presentation. I just wondered, I know that we all see people and know that they are homeless, you can, just by where they're staying or whatnot, but would you have any idea of numbers, like, you know, because you're kind of interfacing a lot closer. Would you have any idea of numbers that you're dealing with, and maybe just a range of ages? Like, that might be a factor in trying to advocate something 24/7. So would you have any idea of that?
As of 4 p.m. this afternoon, I have 27 people living full-time in tents.
Okay,
They are a mixture of male and female, and they range from the age of 20 to mid-40s.
mid-40s. Okay, no, good, thanks.
I will say we did have one older gentleman. We lost him. He passed away in October.
Okay,
I'm not a doctor by any means, but I will not say that his passing at the age that he passed was not related to a rough life living on the streets.
Thank you, Elysha, to you and to other members of the public, some of which, some folks who are here today, because I recognize a number of faces who are out doing their part and doing more than their part to support our most vulnerable in our community. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things, because your presentation here is both urgent as in tonight, tomorrow, and the next few days. But it's also in terms of urgent in a longer term here in our community. So first to the question of the warming center in and around Summerside certainly is something that there is a need for, because as you mentioned, between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. there is nowhere for people who are unhoused to go. Earlier today, we contacted the province and told them that we'd be fine to waive any conditions with respect to the operations of the emergency shelter extending into the daytime hours. So I'm glad that you heard from the province that they've decided to move forward with that. I was not aware that it was restricted to people who are accessing shelter services at this point in time, and I'm not familiar enough with the intake-outtake at the shelter to know whether someone can basically have some services or intake during the daytime. So we'll certainly follow up. The second is, in the event of a more significant power outage or disruption throughout the city that would put a large portion of people into a vulnerable position during the cold weather and extreme weather event, which we are entering into. St. Eleanor's would open. There are cots and bedding, pretty basic stuff, but that is a community service center that has generation power. So if there is a broader event, or there are more people than 15 or 20, which can happen during these cold weather events, particularly with respect to so many people having moved to electric heat, that's the place people would need to go, and then a secondary overflow would be at Wilmot. The other piece there as well, we directed acting CAO to liaise with our fire department. We had this last year, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago. Was it last year? We had this before, at least in my time, so within the last 2 years, before we had a shelter here in Summerside. We had an extreme cold weather advisory and alert, and we opened the fire department. It was staffed by firefighters throughout the night, and if it became necessary, we'd certainly be doing the same type of thing. That is not a place to go during the day. Really, the focus there was to act as a catchment area for people, to give them somewhere warm to go, while then our fire services and police services helped connect them to suitable, adequate shelter through the duration. So if that is deemed necessary, then we would notify the members of the public, and we certainly take some cues and feedback from you or from Jody up at the shelter if it was getting filled. So that's in terms of the very immediate. Whether or not there can be the question of a warming shelter, or so I'd almost think of a facility or space for people to go during the day, is a secondary and broader question. It's certainly highlighted in extreme weather events, hot or cold, but primarily cold when you're living outside. We, as you rightly mentioned, we have pushed, cajoled, we did everything within, I think, our power to try and get a shelter even in the city of Summerside. We're really happy that the province did that. We've been pushing to do everything we can in terms of creating more housing to try and address some of the things that we can actually do something about. City Council can do nothing with respect to the ability to provide more support services, social services, mental health services, drug and addiction services, interest rates, cost of living. We're trying to do everything that we can in our space. In the past year as well, we introduced our Vulnerable Population Grant. We actually did that the last 2 years in order to put money directly into hands and organizations, and some of which who are here today, to try and support our most vulnerable. I think we too thought that 2 years ago that would be a spike and then it would settle. It certainly hasn't settled in our community or in other communities across the country. We also took our rapid housing, $5 million, got it into, again, the hands of the people in our community who can do something about it, to put that third step on the Lifehouse project to build 24 units for women and children who are struggling with homelessness, then moved into transitional housing, and then to ensure that they have affordable housing. So in terms of support, well, I think we're all on the same page, and supporting the work that you do, and certainly appreciate the support that you and others have given to those in our community. I do, 2 years, or maybe it was a year ago here, I sent a letter to the Premier and the Minister, and I'd read the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing's mandate letter, and I brought it up here when you were on the phone, or when you were talking. I wasn't being rude on my phone. I wanted to bring it up because there was a paragraph that I referenced there. And it says to work with the Minister of Health Wellness to create a plan for a Charlottetown-based dedicated site to provide wraparound services for vulnerable islanders, including but not limited to a community outreach center, supportive housing that fosters independent living, harm reduction programs, social supports, and training programs. And we thought that was great, which is what we said in the letter. We said, what about Summerside and what about the people in Western PEI who are struggling with the same things and going through the same things? So we will continue to advocate and push on other levels of government to do all that they can, and I think we'll stay focused and committed on doing everything that we can. I think we can take away from this as well your feedback. It's valuable. Explore other options for warming center. As I said, we've taken some action here for now. We probably need to build a proper policy within our own city so that it doesn't take us in a morning looking at what the forecast is and what an extreme weather alert is. And I guess the last piece was last year, and you were there. I got frustrated going around the community and finding so many people doing really good things that didn't know what others were doing. And so we gathered all of the community support groups and individuals into one room with the support of the John Howard Society. And the John Howard Society led a day to coordinate information, contact sharing, as well as sort of mandate sharing and resource sharing amongst different support groups in our city. I think that has resulted in some improved partnerships across the board. And the other thing it has resulted in is the John Howard Society then has taken on the lead of the HIFA system. And I understand they're doing a point-in-time count for housing and homelessness, or those living unhoused in our community, that is apparently almost done, and I'm sure you know that too, coming out in February. Hopefully, whenever we're armed with more data, we can push those who we need to get more supports for our most vulnerable. So that's sort of my general comment. I'm always happy to see you and everybody else here. And we will manage the next couple of days. We will continue to, as you said, do better. I think we've made some good steps, but I think we can do better, and we always need to be thinking about ways that we can do better to support our most vulnerable, because I think that in a lot of ways reflects how we treat our most vulnerable, really reflects what kind of community we are. And we're a fantastic community that looks out for each other. So thank you for coming in and sharing your update, and look forward to getting a text from you at some point in the next couple of days as well.
Don't hold your breath, it might be a week or so.
Thank you. With there, we'll move on to item 4B, which is Generation XX, and Gordie Whitlock, no stranger to this chamber. Welcome, Gordie. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Your Worship, members of council, tonight I'm going to just give a brief presentation. Some of you are extremely familiar with Gen X, kids that came to it or grandkids. Others never been in the building. So I'm going to give a kind of an overview of what we are and what we're looking to do, and how you're going to help us. So at its core, Generation XX believes that belonging is key for everybody, but especially for youth. After 28 years of running Generation XX, we've been making sure the kids feel that connection to the club and to each other and to their community. And it's only further convinced me how important that is. It's busy and it's a lot of work to do that. It's hard to build trust with kids and it's easy to lose it. But we're very good at it. But what we're not good at is actually telling the community about it. So the kids do a lot of things within this community with seniors and other different groups, and we never look for too much credit for that, but it's always important that the kids learn from that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about where we came from, what we're doing now, and where we're going. So back in 1996, in the mid-90s, there was a major problem in Summerside with kids basically hanging around with nothing to do, and there really was not much to do. They would be shuffled from one parking lot to another, from one mall to another. Every time they'd land somewhere, the police would be called and they'd be moved along. One afternoon, there was a group of kids that went to Tim Hortons in Summerside, ordered some coffees and some drinks, went outside. A few minutes later, who rose up but the Summerside police, again to move them along. Only this time it happened to be Constable Mike Rio. So the kids basically challenged him, you know, that we have no place to go and what are we supposed to do? And luckily for them, Mike believed in them, and he basically said, if you want to work towards it, I'll help you, which he did. After hours and hours of meetings with councils, police officers, community members, business people, parents and children, they came to a conclusion that they were going to form a youth center. They came across an abandoned building that we're currently in, the old curling club, the original curling club. And in 1996, they took possession of that building and started to renovate it. It took them about a full year. In August of 1997, they took possession of the building, and Summerside had its first indoor skate park. Canada had its first indoor skate park, and a youth center. Now back then the problems were pretty basic. They had no place to go, and the place was extremely successful, and it was more or less a non-structured organization. It was just a drop-in center. There wasn't too many rules, no alcohol, no drugs, no fighting. That was basically it. Anything else basically went. We had a lot of activities going on, but the kids decided what they want to do. Today, the problems are much different, though the root cause is the same. They need something to do, but the problems are different. So, having said that, basically Generation XX became a safe, supervised home, second home for a lot of the kids, but we also gave them responsibilities. They had to pitch in, they had to help plan, they volunteered, they helped out in numerous fundraisers, and some of the connections to the community were starting to be built again. I mentioned that we think the kids are better off when they belong somewhere, and part of making sure everybody belongs here is making sure belonging is easy. So there's no fee to be part of the club. It's free to everyone. You don't have to be signed up. No one has to register you to come. It's just a supervised, safe, drop-in facility where any youth can walk in. In fact, it's the only free supervised youth center in Summerside, and maybe the only one that offers full-time hours on PEI. So all kids of all different backgrounds do drop in. Some are skateboarders, scooters, rollerbladers. Some watch movies or play games, do homework, just hang out with their friends, make new friends, grab a snack, learn about all the things they do. We have all kinds of programming. I brought Elysha Buchler with me tonight. She's our program director. And like I said before, at the front end, we didn't do any programming. It was just a drop-in center. But because the problems have changed over the years, now we do a lot of different programming. I mentioned some in here, but there's numerous ones, and the kids all lead those. So it's all about helping youth find their confidence, develop their own leadership skills, building connections. For example, we take kids to conferences every year up in Toronto. We formed a partnership with the Student Commission of Canada. So these kids go to 2 national conferences where representation from every province and territory. This year, later on, actually, the end of next month, we're going up again. There's 13 kids from Gen X going. 4 of them are acting as facilitators for this national conference. So that's pretty exciting for them. Gives them some new opportunities. The youth have held their own conferences here in PEI. There's another one going to be held early next month. So they deal with issues like teen dating, substance abuse, and things of that nature. So they try to wrap their arms around that with kids of their peers, and that's exciting as well. We've always had a dual board of directors at the club since we opened back in '97. There's a youth board and an adult board. They sit at the same time. They make decisions together. The kids basically lead where we want to go. They're extremely active in the community. I know anybody that follows Generation XX at all knows that we've been heavily involved with the senior community, with the youth community. We just, for the last 2 years, have been working hand in hand with the community fridge, where we give out 40 bags of groceries each week from Gen X. It's almost become a full-time job for me, which I wasn't looking for, but as Elysha was saying, the need is there. There's definitely a need for that type of thing. They've been extremely active over the last couple of years with doing that, so that puts them back in with the community. So that's a quick run through of where we came from and what we do. What's coming up next is back in 2017, we started phase 1 of some renovations of the club. Our building was built in 1908. It was the original curling club. And when we took it over, it had been a trials and trades college previous to that, and definitely had shown some age. So back in 2017 to 2019, we stripped the whole building down to the bare bones, took a piece of it off, redid the whole thing with all new wiring, and everything was brand new. Shortly after that, we were supposed to start phase 2, which was the addition of the upstairs over the skate park. Unfortunately, because of challenges to trying to find contractors at that time, because you guys are doing such a great job of building everything in Summerside, we couldn't get a contractor, and then of course COVID hit, which really threw a delay into everything, and extra costs as well that couldn't have been expected. So we still are. We issued the tenders a few months ago. The renovations has started. It's going to be a 2,000 square foot building over the skate park, brand new space. The whole idea of the thing is it's going to be strictly a games area for the kids. There's going to be pool tables, air hockey, ping pong, foosball, TVs. There'll be teen dances held up there. There'll be live gigs held up there. We may do some fundraising with pancake breakfast and whatnot, but it's going to be a place in Summerside for the kids to go where there's no charge, no pre-registration. You just show up and have fun. And that's what the club is all about, and that's why we're excited to get this thing done. Somebody called me today and said the trusses were coming on Wednesday, so they better bring some shovels too, because there's a lot of snow on the roof now. But having said that, we need some help. So during the first phase, it cost us over $200,000, which is our share of the total building cost for the first phase. Our cost for the second phase is roughly the same, plus HST. So for an organization that's run almost entirely, except for a couple small grants from the city and the province on fundraising, for us to come up with $450,000 is a big reach. We borrowed the money the first time, and we managed to pay that off. We've had to reborrow again another $200,000 to pay for our second phase, which we're not sure how we're going to pay that back, but somehow we will. But we're here tonight to ask council if they think that what we do is important, that we need some help from City Council in some sort of a contribution to our capital campaign. I'm not asking for any specific number. I've been on council, so I know that it's not easy to find extra money here and there, but keep in mind that this is a service that's not currently offered in Summerside. It's totally run by volunteers and 3 staff. We open 5 days a week, Monday to Friday from 3 until 9 p.m. and Saturday from 12 until 7 p.m. So, the space is there and available and being used. but we do need some help. So I brought along a little booklet that I'll give to JP before I leave, that he'll give each of you and the mayor. That gives you just a bit of an overview of the club and what we kind of stand for. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gordie. Any questions from council? Councilor McColeman?
Okay, Gordie, thank you for that information. Every time you talk about it, there's more things that I think we find out that's being done. And I know that you do work with a very skeleton crew of people and a lot of volunteering, and it's so nice. I know you do, I do see a lot of times like with the veterans and things like that, and that means a lot to that particular age group of people. My question that I wondered, I know we ran into each other at the grocery store about a year ago. We were talking and you were saying that you had hoped to, like maybe have some things like showers put in, a place where young people could stay or get out of the cold, that sort of thing. Is that something and still part of the plan, or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually in phase one, we installed cesspool washrooms, which included showers. We installed an elevator for all 3 levels of building because accessibility was very important for us. We also have we don't publicize it because it's not every day, but we do have 3 emergency beds for youth that find themselves homeless in an emergency situation that we utilize more often than we'd like to. But again, we're not staffed for that, obviously, so when that happens, it means somebody, usually me, has to spend the night at the club to supervise that. So we do that, and at some point down the road, we hope to expand on that, but I guess one fight at a time, and yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Gordie, for that presentation, and thank you for all you do. You've been involved with the youth for a long time, and it's really appreciated. I've been a big supporter of the Generation XX for years. My son was in it, Lending Jane, the band they had. So I know we had talked about this project before. I was just wondering if you have put in an official request to the city for
the last 6 years, I've asked in the community grant for a capital campaign contribution, which really is a bad place to do it, and I recognize that. That's why I'm here tonight.
Yeah. So you haven't put in an official request?
It's in there again this year, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, that's all. I just wanted to make sure it was there. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any further comments, questions from council? Councilor Duran?
Just a question, more of a just curiosity. Do you have a single sort of largest ongoing regular fundraiser? Like, is it an annual?
Yeah, we do so many of them, Justin. I mean, we do like an annual elimination draw. We do an annual dinner auction. We do an annual sign sale renewal where businesses buy signage outside our building. We do an annual Gold Rush weekly. We do an annual JCA's weekly. We do summer camp every summer. We do sustaining donors.
So many.
Many,
Yeah.
too many, yeah. We spend, I'm guessing, Justin, I'm sorry, Councillor Dwyer, we spend probably 60 to 65% of our time fundraising and 35% of our time looking after the kids, which is totally opposite what we should be doing.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Gordie. Certainly, when I get out and talk to young people in our community, that is they all got really interesting things to say, and they all have different things to say, but the one thing that they all say is that we need more things to do and places to go. So I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I know I've put my feet up in your office and talked about all sorts of different things affecting young people in our community. Perhaps moving forward for council, we could ask finance and staff to liaise with you, and perhaps I could as well, and our chair of finance, and at least initiate the discussions on what that would look like. As you are right, there is almost no money to go around here at City Hall, which is always the challenging part. There are always incredibly valuable and important projects on the desk, and only so much that we have available. But at the same time, these are really important things for us to make sure that we look into and find out what support maybe we could offer.
Thanks.
Thanks, Gordie. With that, we move into item 4C, which is our Department of Economic Development overview, and I'd like to welcome up our Director of Economic Development, Mike Thususka. Mike T.
Mike T.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Just give me a second, Rick. Thank you, Brian. Okay, Mayor and Council, thanks for the opportunity tonight. I'm going to walk through as efficiently as possible what our department is, what we do, and what we hope to do, and where we're going. Before I dive into it, I did want to spend some time laying out the foundation of what economic development is, as I believe it's important for you to understand and for those watching. If I was to ask 1,000 people their definition of what economic development is, I'd probably get 1,000 different answers. In its simplest form, economic development is the concerted efforts, actions of the policymakers and communities to promote the increase in standard of living and the economic health of a specific area. Economic development in our department does not create jobs, does not create wealth. We facilitate it. We try to influence it, and we nurture it to achieve the intended outcomes of jobs and wealth for our economy. Well, there's lots of initiatives, special projects we take on that directly impact our key performance indicators. There are many that we are involved with that don't actually go directly to our bottom line mandate, but do assist in organizational advancement. Economic development is a profession no different than an engineer, a lawyer, or an accountant. We have a code of ethics, professional-based education and training, and a professional certification that holds us accountable. We are both event and process focused, and the iceberg analogy is an example of this. We are sometimes seen above the water or in public in our efforts, but the majority of our work is below the water line, laying foundations, building relationships, and advancing key sectoral initiatives to position Summerside for success. And in some instances, we pass those advancements off to other organizations to realize. EDOs are driven to focus on the long game and not the short term. We always try to be true to our defendable values, ensure authenticity, and to stand up for something meaningful in a very competitive and flat world. In most instances, be it business attraction or retention, our client interactions are by nature confidential. Most, if not all, companies and clients approach our department with the intent to keep information and interactions contained and only with themselves. There's a high level of expectation that all conversation, exchanges, and interactions remain in the strictest of confidence until such time as clients are prepared to share their intentions, whatever they might be. This is foundational testament to our service offerings and is not meant to be shield, but to respect our client interactions. Economic development organizations are operating in a fluid environment where they must account and respond to the internal forces that are often operating outside their control. The economy is complex and uncertain, marked by heightened global competition, an urgent need to increase efficiency, more stringent demands for accountability from investors and stakeholders, and pressure to create and retain jobs in an accelerated fashion. As conditions evolve and other forces impact EDOs and communities across the world, practitioners have had to become more strategic, creative, and nimble. 2024 was a remarkable year in closing out some of our projects, initiating new ones, and working with our local business community and stakeholders to work on advancing Summerside as a place to invest, grow, and make more money. On the slide, on the screen, you'll see just some of the things that we were involved with this past year that we were proud to have been part of. Economic development in Summerside is spearheaded by a small, focused, agile team of dedicated professionals and volunteers. The team is committed to driving the city's core economic activities through expertise, strategic support, and extensive networking. Our primary roles include providing subject matter expertise, working on deal flow facilitations, and being a champion and network builders. While the team works in close partnership with external collaborators such as Innovation PI, Global Affairs, Invest Canada, National Research Organizations, post-secondary institutions, and local champions, the direct activities of Economic Development Office are supported by this formal structure. This approach ensures efficient and strategic progress towards Summerside goals, our office's mandate, and accountability structures, while fostering an inclusive ecosystem of regional and national stakeholders, and by staying focused on advancing our core mandates. Summerside Economic Development Mandate is built around 3 core objectives: driving sustainable growth, fostering innovation, and promoting a competitive business environment. By leveraging the city's strategic advantages, pro-business policies of the city, and our partners' programs, as well as our robust infrastructure, the mandate aims to attract wealth and retain and expand the business sector across our key sectors while influencing wealth generation, property assessment, and population growth. While various sectors and influences contribute to shaping this mandate, these overarching objectives provide a clear and consistent framework for evaluating and guiding the city's economic development activities. These focuses ensure a strategic approach to our long-term success. In my experience, economic development encompasses a wide range of activities, some directly tied to our mandate and others more divergent, but organizationally important or linked. From a core economic development perspective, as formalized in our annual action plans, our programming is fundamentally centered on the key focuses area outlined in this slide. These priorities ensure alignment with our strategic objectives and provide a structured approach to delivering measurable outcomes. Fundamentally, we are able to succeed by working with our necessary partners in our core activities by embracing collaboration over competition. While we actively support business growth in a very professional and focused manner, we also know that success is not achieved alone. Economic development is a team effort, and in Summerside, we work hard at building collaborative partnerships. Our role is to bring people together with aligned mandates to create a unified strategy for growth, centered specifically around that specific mandate. We do employ the 80-20 rule, which means 80% of our effort activities are focused on our existing business base and things we can do to improve and assist them. 20% of our time is often on the shiny stuff, going out and trying to influence and attract new and diverse business opportunities for our community. We also prioritize the creation of high-quality jobs that provide not just a paycheck, but opportunities for growth, skill development, and a fulfilling career right here in our community. Another critical aspect of our role is championing sustainability and innovation. Summerside has established itself as a leader in clean advancements driven by the steadfast commitment to a net zero future. Leveraging platforms like the Summerside Exchange, we have had the opportunity to propel innovation, foster collaboration, and stimulate growth. The remaining initiatives on the building are focused more along the, excuse me, sorry, I didn't realize this was happening. Sorry, thanks, Brian. The remaining initiatives focus on building awareness, shaping perception, and expanding networking opportunities, but fundamentally address our overarching challenges of growing and diversifying our economy. Performance measurement is a systematic approach to evaluating the efficiency and effectiveness of our programs or projects. It provides ongoing monitoring to ensure alignment with our desired goals and clearly demonstrates the value of economic development. KPIs play a critical role in benchmarking our performance year over year, enabling us to evaluate our success and our shortcomings in fulfilling our mandate. They also provide essential checkpoints to pivot, adapt, and refine our strategies, ensuring we meet or exceed our targets. In our operations, we rely on key performance indicators to measure success using things like new business creation, population movement, employment changes, general inquiries, permit values, and employment trends. These metrics not only set clear goals for us, but also provide a framework to demonstrate progress and ensure initiatives remain focused, impactful, and aligned with our overarching economic development objectives, but also, as important, checkpoints to make sure our collaborative work is having the intended impact. Another critical important KPI is our annual business outreach survey. BR&E initiatives are critical to identifying and addressing the needs of our business community. In a world often dominated by social media narratives and selective headlines, Summerside Economic Development prioritizes direct engagement with business owners and managers to understand their challenges and inspire solutions tailored to meet their needs by speaking directly to them. The slide on the screen is just a snapshot of how our community has performed when it comes to private sector investment over the last number of years. Again, some of these metrics we've been directly engaged with, and others we're working on the sidelines to extend their impacts. Over this 5-year period, the Summerside economy has done very well, but we have more success to achieve. I'd like to take a moment to highlight our positioning and value proposition from an investment and growth standpoint, which is very relevant when we're engaging business and investors. Every city has a distinct identity shaped by its residents and business. This is not a marketing slogan or a hashtag or a fancy picture. It's the essence and authentic way in which our client base sees, tastes, and feels confidence about investing in Summerside. For investors and entrepreneurs, a city's appeal is often defined by its economic potential and business opportunities. And to compete effectively and grow its economy, a city must define, refine, and communicate its unique value proposition with clarity and precision. At the heart of Summerside's value proposition lies an unwavering commitment to driving business success, sustainability, and profitability through building relationships. We have built a reputation as a results-driven city, fostering innovation and accelerating business growth, trying to address these challenges head-on as ways to overcome or advance our community as a whole. The real essence of our offer is being authentic, believable, and unique from every other global city that we're trying to compete against for that 1 degree of separation. Summerside's value proposition is more than the statement, it's a promise. Our signature program, the Summerside Exchange, is a business accelerator to anchor, support, and grow mid-stage companies in a business-centered environment in Summerside. By providing a combination of physical and program support, the Exchange enhances the entrepreneurial startup climate in the city. Its core mission is to strengthen Summerside's value proposition, drive deal flow, increase awareness, and wraparound support in finance, legal, and venture capital, and foster innovation. The Summerside Exchange is positioned as a global leader in testing, validation, and scale of next-generation products and services. While Summerside offers numerous advantages for businesses such as supportive environment, skilled labor pool, innovative infrastructure, there still are challenges that we know through our interactions and discussions that we face that we will continue to work on and address. While Summerside has established itself as a hub for innovation, sustainability, and business growth, we have advanced Summerside in many ways. We know there are challenges that still require our strategic focus to overcome. Addressing these barriers is essential to maintaining and enhancing the city's economic potential. Fundamentally, they're centered around talent, investor awareness, scale, population and demographics, economic diversification, and capital and market success. Addressing these challenges through planning, innovation, and collaboration will ensure our continued success. Our office continues to evolve and diversify its scope of work while we nurture new investments and cultivate business. We remain deeply engaged with the legacy opportunities that continue to grow and develop. Beyond our below the waterline efforts, we are focusing on several key initiatives: research and development, infrastructure innovation, validation programs, and investment outreach. These efforts aim to foster sustainability, develop and strengthen our position in emerging sectors, and deliver long-term value to our stakeholders. As we look to the future, it's essential to remember that economic development is an ongoing process, a collaborative journey rather than a result of a single leader or initiative. It's about building a shared vision in our community where business owners, workers, residents, and community all play a role. And while the office is our smallest team inside the organization, we are certainly proud of our achievements and our collaborative efforts to bring partnerships to help advance Summerside. Achieving success requires a deep understanding of when to take the lead and when to provide support, strategic focus in building critical relationships, and managing our limited and collective resources and potential. By working together, we can unlock new opportunities, foster innovation, and achieve greater success as a united community. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you, Mike. With that, I'll open the floor. Questions from members of council? Any specific questions? Councillor McColman?
I always have a question. Thank you for that information, Mike. That's really well done. I just wonder sometimes, like I know that that you're doing a lot of multitasking and different things. And I don't know if this is a fair question, but I'd really like to hear your thoughts on it. What do you see is the biggest time crunch for you? Like, I know there's a lot of hidden work, and just as you said at the very beginning, the above water and the underwater. But what do you see where you're such a small number of people working and trying to do a lot of different things and a lot of balls in the air? What do you see as the time cruncher for you, trying to deal with those things? And I don't know if that's a fair question. I've often just really wondered that, because you do a lot.
I'm not sure I could answer that. I have a great team around me, and I think I have a great organization around me. And I think the biggest time crunch is just trying to get people, and it's not hard to do that, just get people working in the same way. I'm committed 100% to this organization. I think Summerside has a lot of amazing opportunities. I think our team leaders inside this organization are some of the best in this country. And I think the biggest challenge I face from a time crunch perspective is seizing opportunities when we have the opportunity to seize them. Yeah.
Sometimes I see you as, a lot of times you're doing reports, you're very, deep in that thought, working on them. Then there might be a conference, or you're getting ready with a new client or whatever. And I just see you doing a lot of different things, and I just kind of wonder. I know I couldn't do it. So
Thank God
that's
for
why I'm
coffee,
asking.
right? Yeah. Thank God for coffee.
Anyway, well, thanks
Awesome.
for all
Thank you for those
do.
comments.
Thanks, Mike. I just have a couple really quick questions here. One, obviously, thanks for all the work that you do. Certainly come across many people who have been investing here in our city, or whether they're have been leaders across the country, whether that's with Invest Canada or with a new developer or with a business that's come in here, that have said, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that guy, and referencing you. So I appreciate all the work that you do to help generate economic activity and create wealth in our community. A couple quick questions. One is, if it's possible, perhaps you can follow up with Deputy Mayor Snow and find a way to bring those KPI indicators to council on a more regular basis.
Sure.
Whether that's through our regular reporting or whether that's on a quarterly, or I have a note on my desk, which is just a question, which is, what's the best metric to be measuring economic activity here in our community? I know you've got a bunch, so I'm going to put that with, I was going to send you an email about it, but I didn't want to catch you off guard, so I'll put you on the spot here, but not ask for an answer, but ask you to look to that. So what are sort of, if you can help prioritize some of those KPIs as well.
For sure. Absolutely.
Because that's something that I'm always looking at, is how do we measure the economic success in our community? Because sometimes how we measure it has a huge impact on whether or not it gives us different bits of information. The last piece, Mike, I have here is, as a former small business owner, one of the things that here in our city, and someone who's created jobs and built a new business, sometimes I feel as though our attention can be elsewhere, can be in attracting jobs to come to Summerside, as opposed to supporting and growing jobs here in Summerside. And I certainly am a big believer in the most long-term sustainable jobs that keep people working in places and pay well and provide good benefits are the ones that come from businesses here in our community, whether that's at your Holman's Ice Cream Shop or your Water Street Bakery or HMS, because often those people are really committed to our city. I know you're bringing some new folks here as well. But you mentioned your 80-20 rule, and I was wondering if we should be doing more, or if you think need more support and resources to help focus more on some of our SMEs here in our city, and if you think there's an opportunity there for us.
I think thank you for those comments, and indeed, economic development nomenclature would suggest you're absolutely right. Most of your growth comes within your community. There's a lot of stuff we do behind the scenes that I wouldn't even mention here tonight, but I do think there's an opportunity for our office, in reflection of our office, working a little more closely with some of our other organizations in the community to do, I'll call, more substantive BR&E type work for our business community. And I think, maybe back to your comment, that's part of the capacity issue. We have one individual plus myself trying to do a whole host of things, and I think we could do a lot better if we work closely with like the chambers and the downtowns and some of these other groups that want to be part of this solution, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great, and I guess for council, members of the public too, it is, when we do have businesses here in our community that want to grow and expand locally, putting them in touch with you in your shop can be really valuable, because I know folks come in on a regular basis, but if we also can play a role in helping drive our local growth, individuals who are growing our economy through our economic development department, we can get some great results. All right, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
have a
it.
great evening. We'll move into presentations. We have two here tonight from staff. We have 5A, that's where we'll start, which is a fire hall alternate location option, and then we have a discussion on the Silver Fox. Just a quick note, Councillor Adams is traveling internationally with family, so she's not here this evening. I did speak with Councillor Adams in advance of tonight's meeting on a number of things, and she shared her thoughts. There are no anticipated votes here tonight necessarily, although the vote can always arise at council. But I don't think she was going to be able to call in unless there was a specific vote. So with that, we'll move into 5A, which is fire hall alternate location option. This is being presented by Deputy CAO JP DeRosier and Chief Ron. And I said I'd sort of queue it up, and I guess I have JP, but as well, the way I look at this is that council has set a very hard and solid start date to get this new fire hall built. But as we continue to work towards that date, we're always at the drawing board. We spend here at the City of Summerside a lot of time planning and as short a time possible executing to help to try and reduce potential vulnerabilities along the way. So we'll hand that over to you, JP, to bring forward an alternate option. Right now, council does have an option that meets our requirements, but this came forward, and so it's incumbent on council to explore all options that won't disrupt the timeline and the path that we have in place.
Great, thank you, Mayor Kutcher. I'll keep this relatively brief, just to allow some time for council to ask questions to myself and, more importantly, Chief Ron here. But as the mayor mentioned, since the most recent fire hall announcement back in November, a new parcel of land in a suitable location near the under construction east-west housing corridor has become available for sale. The site allows the new fire hall to be positioned as close as possible to the geographical center of the 8-kilometer service catchment area for the fire services. Both fire services, and I'll let Ron speak to this, or sorry, Chief speak to this later on, but both fire services support the existing location that we proposed on Central Street, along with this new plot of land that we'll have a look at here in a moment. Additionally, Island EMS has purchased the property adjacent to this new proposed land, where they plan to build a new EMS facility in the coming years or year. And the alternate location will not impact the timelines for the tender process or construction start dates. And lastly, the cost of the land is $450,000 plus HST. So what I'll do now is I'll just get directly into the location of the land. I have a couple of different slides that kind of indicate where the land is, and then I'll leave it to council for questions for myself and for Ron. So the first image here just sort of shows the proposed fire hall lands in red. As you can see, it connected to the east-west housing corridor, and across the street having Island EMS there, kitty corner to Athena School along McEwen Road. So I guess before I get into any further slides, does council have any questions about this particular location, or is it pretty clear on the map? Pretty good? Okay. So obviously the next question, and this is a bit of a rudimentary map, overlay, but this is just to kind of indicate to council that the designs we have currently for the proposed fire hall will fit on this proposed land. There will need to be some moderate changes in design work for the proposed site development, but the building itself will remain as presented to council and to Chief Ron previously. So it does fit. The lands proposed on Central Street are 1.5 acres, and this land here is 1.6, so relatively close. Those are the two slides I wanted to show you with the mapping. So I think what I'll do now is just sort of turn it back to council with questions for myself and for the chief, and then we can talk about next steps.
So, and I think you indicated this, and Chief Ron will probably speak to it, but it sounds as though from a firefighter or firefighting standpoint that either location works equally. From the onset of all the fire station talk and location, et cetera, I think it's always been my standpoint that whatever the location is had to serve the firefighters and the community well. And I know there was some pushback when Leisure Park was mentioned, but again, it came down to the point that it serves the community and it works. So at the end of the day, that's one of our core objectives as fire service and policing, et cetera. So as long as the support is there from the fire department, the fire chief, and it fits in regards to servicing the community, I think that's what needs to make the most sense. The dollars obviously come into play. $450,000 is not small change when we're getting ready to go into budgets, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of long, hard nights ahead of us when we start into that process of budgets. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I guess my point is, as long as the fire service is best serving our community, whatever that location is, whether or not people like it or not, because I'm 100% positive that somebody's going to come out and say, this location is an awful location, what are you thinking, why are you putting it there? So as long as I can stand by that fact that the location is what the fire service supports and it serves our community well, then I don't foresee any issues with it.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. As with Deputy Mayor Snow, I've said from day one, both as a firefighter and as a councillor, that as long as any potential location met the needs of the fire service and wasn't just a political selection of a location, that I would be in full support. So I think the chief is here to attest to that fact. So with that said, I'm certainly in full support of this. I think the cost of the land is reasonable and a fair trade-off to preserving what is now Leisure Park and the green space there. I would like to, whether it's tonight or at a future meeting, just compare what the costs would have been for that original Ryan Street location that we were originally committed to, like how this sort of compares to that, just as a comparison that we can give to the residents. But yeah, all in all, I think as long as this is deemed suitable for the fire service, I'm in full support.
Councillor Cameron, do you want to answer that question?
I'd just like to comment that staff aren't here tonight looking for staff to make a decision. We'll be back in February, first meeting in February, I believe it's the 4th, to seek a council decision then. I probably should have mentioned that before. Yeah, so this is just more of an opportunity for you to ask questions. If we don't have answers this evening, we'll gather them and we'll bring them back to council on the 4th or before.
And we'll jump to you, Councillor Cameron. I was just also going to touch on the question with the Ryan Street cost. So I think the original agreement with respect to the Ryan Street location was $300,000 and then $385,000 in tax credits. And then the terms of that agreement was to build a road, and the road wasn't built, so the agreement expired. So if I'm wrong, then staff can correct at the next date.
You're super close. 696,000 total. Right. 396 in tax receipt and 300,000 in cash. So you were super close. Good memory.
And I know for that original Ryan Street location, obviously the developer didn't meet obligations by the deadline. That lot wasn't serviced either, and I know that this will be fully serviced with the construction of the corridor. So.
Yeah, part of the terms of that original agreement with the previous contract we had was to have the lot fully serviced in a certain timeline. Those obligations weren't met, so the deal was null and void following that. this land is as well serviced, yes.
Councillor Cameron, and then we'll go to Councillor McDougall.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. I heard from a fair amount of residents when we announced the Legier Park location. And one of the big things that I heard from people is the fact that no one really, as a taxpayer, I shouldn't say they don't care about the money that was going to be spent at that location, but that was pretty low priority for where it was going to go. So it's nice to see something come back around that it is less than what we were going to spend in the original location to change to a parkland to potentially go to this location. To go back to just a comment that Deputy Mayor Snow made about fire being one of the essential services that we do provide as a municipality, but we must not forget that community services and parkland is also an essential that we do provide through the Municipal Government Act. So we can't just diminish the fact that we are potentially going to put this in parkland. When we had originally talked about Legier Park, there was talks about a potential, I'll call it a small budget that would go into more of the beautification of the area for the residents around there. Do we have any idea of what that was going to cost?
No, not at this time, no.
Okay, I just want to know if we had a rough idea so we could compare that to what we're paying out for a piece of land. Because if we're going to spend, $100,000 anyway, then that does kind of offset the cost a little bit anyway. My other question is, do we know the distance between the fire hall and those buildings here on Elizabeth Avenue?
Not to the level of detail that you'd probably be wanting tonight, but I can certainly ask tech services. They've done some surveying and some relatively preliminary work on this, so we could certainly bring that back in advance of the 4th.
Okay,
I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, I guess since I came onto council, I've been a pretty big pusher for a fire hall. I really struggle because I think a fire hall is the most needed thing that we could have right now. I would love to see it go in this location. I don't think that the money aspect is that, I can't say it's not that huge because it's a lot of money. But I think if we want to ensure that people are protected and happy with the location, that we should really try our absolute best to find this $450,000 to potentially change locations.
Thank you, Your Worship. I like this location, and call it coincidence or just knock it up to we hear the people, we listened. This Legier Park was the second recommendation the first time that we went out to do a new fire hall. Second time, it was the second location. And we all sat around here, and with the information we had agreed about the Legier Park. I did too, but when I seen the overlay of the fire department, and I was always concerned about the trees, and when I seen the actual overlay of where it was setting next to the park, I was so pleased when I heard this was coming up. So I think staff, we need to get staff to do some work on this, and if there's an opportunity for us to put it there, I'm good with that. Don't think it has to be rezoned either, does it? No. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Your Worship. Also, I very much like where this property is. I believe it's industrial, and I think the big factor is for our chief and firefighters, it is a building that certainly would meet the needs, and because it's close to EMS, I think that's another benefit where they do work in tandem, hand in hand on emergencies. The other point I like about it is the close proximity and the central site that it is at or will be at, should we go that route. Forgetting 2 fires on short notice and emergency response. And my biggest thing is, I think our firefighters and our department are well worth the dollars that we invest into a state-of-the-art facility, because they've waited for many years for something that they can work with. So I'm very much for it.
Councillor Treno?
Sure, I'll keep it short and sweet. I had a lot of concerns, I guess, and residents talking to me about we're going to Legier. I'm a big proponent of parkland, and so I would definitely struggle for sure. So having this new location makes a lot of sense to me. So I guess that is as short as sweet as could be. There it is.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll just share a comment I received from Councillor Adams. As I said, I spoke with Councillor Adams. She did highlight the fact that this location serves both the in and out to eastern part of the city as well, and may also give us more time. Certainly, if the city continues to grow at the pace that it is today, probably certainly not going to grow at this type of pace forever. But as the city continues to expand to the east, this location provides a good access point to potentially be able to, at some point, we're going to need to probably build a secondary eastern fire hall or fire station of some sort, like a secondary one. But Councillor Adams said, look, putting the location here will get firefighters in and get fire trucks out to be able to serve the eastern part of the city, and may save us money actually over the long term. So with that, Council, as mentioned, this will be back on February 4th. There is an option to purchase here for Council. There's an option to purchase that requires Council's approval. That option would expire on February the 5th, so Council will have to make a decision on February the 4th. And if you decide not to, then you'd have to go renegotiate purchase prices again. So with that, any further comments, questions? Ken, I think you have your microphone on, but I think that's from your last comment. Anything else? Okay, great. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, JB. Yeah, thanks to all of our firefighters who keep us safe in our community. Now move on to item 5B, Silver Fox, Curling and Yacht Club presentation from staff. This will come to no surprise to any members of the Silver Fox Curling and Yacht Club or to Council, but it certainly may to other members of the public. So we've asked Director of Community Services and Deputy CAO to present to Council. Council will be asked for a decision. If we need to vote, we will vote here tonight. But the ultimate decision will be whether or not Council wants to proceed to the next step with respect to due diligence on the property. So with that, I'll hand it over to JP, and we will work our way to that point in time.
Thank you, Mayor Kutcher. Yeah, so I'm here tonight just to provide a bit of a summary of how we've arrived to the situation or the stance we're in with the Silver Fox in the city. So essentially what I thought I would do is I'd provide a bit of a chronology of events going back a year and a half or so until this evening, and then kind of seek Council's yay or nay on next steps. So I don't typically make a habit of reading slides verbatim, but I'm going to try and go through these relatively fast, but I will read them just so we're all on the same page in terms of the timeline. So in April 2023, the Silver Fox Management Board requested a loan guarantee from City Council as a result of ongoing financial challenges that the facility or the club was seeing. At that time, our existing grants bylaw didn't allow for a loan guarantee of any sort. So we did go through the legal work through the months of April and May of that year to amend our CS 41-A bylaw to move forward with a loan guarantee. As part of that loan guarantee, there was a number of conditions included into that guarantee that at that time the board of directors of the Silver Fox weren't comfortable with, so they effectively rejected our loan conditions and sort of moved on. From May of 2023 to December of 2023, the communications was sort of quiet on the front of the Silver Fox. We sort of made assumptions that things may have improved. However, in December of 2023, the Silver Fox board made another request for a similar loan guarantee and acknowledging that they were back into some financial challenges again. We presented the Silver Fox loan guarantee conditions again. They were moderately changed, but they were relatively the same as they were back in May of that year. And we went through a bit of a process over a couple of months there, trying to get some sense of confirmation that the Silver Fox was agreeable to the loan conditions. However, those talks sort of faded again. I think through the summer months, things once again were a little more positive from a financial standpoint with the facility. And again, I'm guessing on some of this. However, in November of 2024, this past November, the Silver Fox Management Board presented to City Council, as you know, indicating that the facility was in significant financial challenges and requested the city consider assuming ownership of the facility and operations of the facility before they were faced with a potential private sale. And at that time, members of the board presented to council that there was a debt that was somewhere in the vicinity of $300,000 to $400,000. And again, this is back in November. So later in that month of November, the city advised the Silver Fox Board of Directors that we would require 3 resolutions, one from the curling board, one from the yachting board, and one from the management board, along with notification and support from the overall membership that the entire complex was agreeable to the city potentially looking at taking over operations, which on December 29th, I believe, we received all of those requirements. We received some of the board endorsements earlier in that month, but the membership, I don't know, it's called a membership vote, but a membership information session was held with what I'm told was relatively strong support for the city to move to the next steps, which those next steps are going through a due diligence process to learn more about the state of the facility and its current obligations and operational situations. In January, earlier this month, we did start some preliminary due diligence in advance of this meeting tonight. But we're here this evening to seek council's direction on whether or not council wants to continue to proceed down the due diligence process or not. And before we get into the official posing of that question or a vote, I'm just going to summarize what our due diligence process will be with the facility. So essentially, we'll be engaging and have to some degree already started engaging internal and external legal and financial support to review all outstanding debt, operational costs, lease and contractual agreements with vendors and suppliers. We're going to analyze audited financial statements, cash flow and income statements. And then on the building side, we'll be going through a full building audit that includes electrical, HVAC inspections, plumbing, ice plant reviews, kitchen equipment, everything under the sun from a full building audit. And then, as I mentioned, findings of this, if council desires to proceed to the next step with due diligence, council will receive a sort of summary report of the due diligence sometime in the month of February. So as I've outlined, we'll seek council's sort of direction on the next steps for this due diligence phase when it comes to the Silver Fox. Any questions as well, I'm happy to answer.
Do you have a rough idea of the costs associated with the due diligence?
I was anticipating that, and I don't have an exact figure. There will be some external legal expenses, but primarily we're attempting to keep it with internal staff resources. But I don't have a figure on the exact amount that legal services will require to do a lot of the legal work.
Okay.
I can certainly attempt to try and get that.
Me? Okay, thank you, JP. Do we have any idea what the debt is now? You said it around 300? Is it?
I don't.
Okay.
At this point in time, we've had ongoing conversations with the management board, but I'd like to, if endorsed by council, to go through that process. We'll learn a lot more about the existing debt. I know when members of the board were here in November, they outlined somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000, I believe. That number likely has grown, I'm assuming again, but I'm not sure, since that time.
Yeah, it's always been a cherished facility in our city, and I think, I do support moving ahead with the due diligence. I think we owe it to the membership and we owe it to the residents of the city, so, thank you.
Thank you. No, I certainly support it as well, but just a question, and it might be a bit premature in the process, but if this was to go ahead and we did, I guess, assume ownership, just with regards to the, I guess, the food service component, would there be like an RFP to continue that, or how would that look?
Yeah, I don't really want to get into too much
Yeah, I know.
projecting of what the operation will look like. I mean, we certainly have ideas internally, but yeah, the city's not in the business of operating food service. We would look to outsource to a third party and go through a formal RFP process to do so.
Okay, similar to likely what we would have done with the shipyard.
Shipyard, the same we do at the COP, other locations as well, yeah.
Okay. JP, thank you for giving that information and review, and I think I appreciate it because we're doing it in the public meeting, and I think it's stated very clearly that it was not something initiated by the city. It was the board members had come to the city just you know, for that request. And I think the due diligence piece is really important so that on all sides of the matter, the homework is done and people know exactly what's trying to be looked at. So I appreciate that information.
Yeah, I would concur. Due diligence makes sense to me. The alternative, going to a private sale, when this has been in the community and offered so much to so many people, that doesn't sit right with me. So I think as a city, we just owe it, at least this phase, due diligence, seek all the, I guess, the truth, and then bring it back to council. 100% support that.
Thanks, JP, once again for the update, and the more information we have, it'll be much easier to make the decisions that are going to come down the road. But yeah, so I'd certainly be in favor of continuing and getting the information and see what we can find out.
Yeah, just a final thought that I forgot to mention. Again, if this should go through, I think what may happen to the property should we not visit this is a dangerous possibility. We don't know what might happen down there if it's not allowed to remain, you know, a curling club, a yacht club. So just wanted to throw that out there, that it's scary to think what might happen if this does go to something such as a private sale. So just to keep that in mind as well. So I hope this turns up positively for us and for the clubs as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple things. It says come back to council in February. Are we thinking February owing or, yeah. So that concerns me a little bit when we start talking. There's probably nobody in this room that would care more about a curling club than me. It's a big part of my life still today. My son's over in Newfoundland curling tonight, and I'm not watching him on TV, but I wish I was. But it's a big part of my life, and just knowing that facility, and I think I'm correct, and if I'm not correct, somebody correct me, but I think it's the only curling and yacht club combination probably in Canada, if not North America. It's quite a unique combination of things that really do play a huge part in our community. So I guess I'm just concerned with it. At the end of the day, it's all finances, right? That's why we're here talking about it. Timing wise.
Yeah, so I appreciate what you're saying, and I think the well-intentioned volunteers and board members of the Fox are feeling the same pressure. As a municipal employee, I have a duty to bring council a fulsome report so council can understand exactly the responsibilities and the obligations that they'll be taking on and what the potential future operational subsidies or costs may need to be. So while I understand the pressures, we will go as fast as we can. At the end of the day, we want to provide an accurate, fulsome report to council that council can make an accurate decision with. So okay. I don't want to commit tonight that it'll be ready February 4th for a council meeting. It may need to be the monthly meeting. And it likely will be. And we also don't want to back council into a corner to make a decision right away either once they're presented with that information. But note that it's a high priority for staff to get the fees or the due diligence completed.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments, questions from council? Okay, hearing none here to it, just chime in as well that I think curling and I think the marina and access to the water, really, it really is our only access point for things like junior sailing or for boaters, are really valuable assets and recreational assets here in our community. So I'm glad we are looking to move forward with the due diligence. So if I haven't heard anyone here in council say they don't want to move forward, so you can let me know if I'm wrong on that. And I guess we will come back with the numbers, because ultimately this is a review to determine what the debt, assets, liabilities, and operational projections are, and then council will have to make a decision recognizing that we are stewards of taxpayer dollars and need to make decisions that are fiscally sustainable and responsible, and balance competing interests and costs and options. So unless I got that wrong, if any, so it seems to be the overwhelming feeling of council to proceed with the due diligence review, and then return when the due diligence is of quality to bring forward to council. I would always caution, do not rush due diligence. That's how you get yourself into a lot of trouble. So it will come when it comes, and I'm glad to hear that staff know that this is as big a priority for staff as it is for council and the community. Also, in the interim, members of the club can continue to reach out to the city and speak to councillors and share thoughts as we work through this together as a community. We don't want to have a situation, we don't need another golf course. Well, we do need another golf course. We need another golf course because we don't need another golf course situation here in the city of Summerside. So hopefully we can make something work. Thank you, Deputy. With that, we'll move on to item 6. If there are people who want to stick around, you can. If you don't worry. If you get up and walk out, we're not going to be offended. No, you can't. You can't go. All right, Council, we're taking along. So we'll move on now to item 6, which is appointment to committees, which is usually a quick one, but this one's going to take a couple more minutes. I did send a memo around to all of council here earlier today. We're 2 years into our mandate. We've had a couple of council changes over the time, and I've spent the last really 2 or 3 months working on trying to met with each one of you, had ongoing conversations to try and find how we go about building a path forward together. And so I'm going to make some changes to representative positions, as well as establish a series of new committees. You guys have all of that information, and then make some changes to committee appointments as well. As it says in the memo that I sent to council, I have tried to balance all of your personal interests, what you have shared with me, what your interests are in terms of wanting to get certain things done in our community, what's going on in your personal life, and then tried to balance it across as best possible. This is always going to be, nothing's always going to be perfect, but I'm certainly trying to do my best for everybody. So with that, I'll just move into the appointments. So new appointments. I'll go with existing ones. Councillor Adam, Councillor Durand, Councillor McDougall, Councillor Snow are remaining in the representative functions in which they sit. Councillor Cameron will be appointed representative for Arts, Culture, Diversity. Councillor McColman will be the representative for Governance and Human Resources. Councillor Morrison will be the representative for Municipal Services, and Councillor Trenholm will be the representative for Community Services. Moving to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee members hereby will be Councillor McDougall as chair. Councillor McDougall is the current chair. Councillor McDougall will be joined by Deputy Snow and Councillor Morrison on finance. Planning Committee, Chair of Planning Committee will be Councillor Durand. Councillor Durand is the existing chair. Councillor Durand will be joined by Councillors Trenholm and Councillor Adams as members of Planning Committee. Bylaws and Governance Committee, Councillor McColman will assume the role of chair of the Bylaws and Governance Committee. Councillor McColman will be joined by Councillor Snow and Councillor Cameron as the 3 members of the Bylaws and Governance Committee. The Planning Board, which is created pursuant to Section 9.2 of the Planning Act, will mirror the Planning Committee. So Councillor Durand will remain chair. Councillors Adams and Councillor Trenholm will join the Planning Board. So that means Councillor Morrison and Councillor Snow, you're not on the planning board anymore. So you get your last reads in to help out Councillor Toronto. Sorry, Justin, you're still in for the reading. The Heritage Advisory Board that was established recently, there's no need to make any changes or adjustments to that. At this time, the members that are there will remain there. Series of committees, as it says in the memo, these are not exhaustive, but these are coming into creation now. First, the Downtown Transformation Implementation Team, Chair, Deputy Mayor Snow, Councillor members Morrison, McColman, and Cameron. Second ad hoc committee, the Action Plan for Safer Neighborhoods, Councillor Adams is actually co-chair with myself. Councillor Trenholm and Councillor McDougall will sit as members for the Action Plan for Safer Neighborhoods. The Smart City Initiative, Service Delivery, and Artificial Intelligence will be chaired by Councillor Cameron and joined by Councillor Member Duran. The Summerside Electric Utility Governance Review Committee will be chaired by Councillor Morrison, will be joined by Councillor McDougall in his role as Chair of Finance. And the Seniors Advisory Committee will be chaired by Councillor Trenholm. I have council members here at pleasure. Councillor Trenholm, we can connect as well, and if other members of council want to join Councillor Trenholm on the Seniors Advisory Committee as we build up that mandate, we will get to that. I also have noted here the Youth Advisory Committee. We did form a Youth Advisory Committee, and we continue to work with Tosh and Jacqueline Reeves at Three Oaks. So I'd expect we will explore that a little further as a group, and I know some councillors have expressed an interest there. And that's it. Thank you, members of council. Those of you who are changing roles and committees, really appreciate the work that you've done and looking forward to the work that we do next. There is a lot to do, and also we have a lot to be proud of. You've made a lot of accomplishments and made some really bold and transformative decisions in the past 2 years with the support of staff and with the support of each other. So I look forward to the next 2 years, and we'll have our conversations on the future visioning pieces in the coming weeks, and then we'll get back at it. All right, with that, no more appointments to committees, and maybe for a while, hopefully, and we'll move into item 7, introduction and reading of bylaws and resolutions. And at this point, I have Chair of Finance Committee, Councillor McDougall, taking 7A.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have a resolution here. It's an increase to our operating line of credit, and everyone received an email on this today, I believe, or last couple of days, and it's probably something that we should put on the finance to look at increasing this, because we've had this line of credit, or this amount, for quite a while, and with all the extra stuff that we're doing now, we're probably going to run into this problem a little more often. But it's just that it's timing of the projects coming in, so we may use this, we may not. So I do have a resolution here this evening, and it's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Norma McColman. Whereas the City of Summerside is an operating line of credit in the amount of $5 million with RBC. Whereas the City of Summerside is in the process of securing long-term debt financing for the East-West Corridor, the Eco Park building, and water and sewer reconstruction capital expenditures that have occurred during 2023-24 and 2024-25. Whereas these expenditures have been paid from our general operating account, and whereas the city is expecting funding to be received in the next 2 months from various sources, including the Housing Accelerator Fund and the Canada Community Building Fund. And whereas this temporary increase to the operating line of credit will only be drawn on if necessary and will be paid down once funds are received. Therefore, be it resolved that the City Council authorize a temporary increase of $5 million to bring the operating line of credit held with RBC to $10 million until March 31st, 2025, at which time it is expected that planned sources of funding and long-term debt financing has been received. The City of Summerside can incur the indebtedness and liability as set out above. per section 166(1) of the Municipal Government Act, Part 6, Division 3. A council may be bylaw authorized, whatever, the borrowing of money on a short-term basis for the purpose of financing operating expenditures. The security required for this borrowing transaction is the appropriate borrowing resolution and related documentation. I'm not sure what I said.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Resolution COS 25-001, moved by Councillor McDougall, second by Councillor McColeman, is on the floor. And note for the record that it does not say whatever in the resolution, but the typo can be corrected.
Yeah.
With the resolution on the floor, call for comments, questions from members of council. Councillor Snow?
Just your comment early on, Bruce, talking about needing to take it to finance, you meant for a more permanent, long-term.
Yeah, discussion
larger-
of finance
yeah,
and then
okay,
come
gotcha.
back to council.
Right, okay.
The recommendation, yeah.
Any further comments from council? Seeing no lights, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is carried unanimously. Thank you, Chair of Finance, Councillor McDougall. With that, we will move into the home stretch of our evening, which is department reports. What we will do is, I'm not going to make everybody switch things around, so we'll just go present the department reports based on the name that is here before you, and then we'll change them around for the next meeting. Is that okay for everybody?
Sounds good.
Great, okay, we'll start with finance. Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have a report by Director Dunsford. Good evening, colleagues and City Council and residents and business of the City of Summerside. The preparation of our 2025-26 capital and operating budgets is well underway, and Council will begin their deliberations in early February. We expect to present this budget to our businesses, nonprofit organizations, and residents on Tuesday, March 11th at 12 p.m. and vote on the budget on Thursday, March 27th at 12 p.m. A reminder to nonprofit organizations who were approved for a community support grant for the fiscal year of 2024-25 to submit their final report, which was due on December 31st. Thank you for those organizations who have submitted by our deadline. And just an update on the status of our utility accounts receivable as of January 14th. Total overdue balance is $420,300 compared to $318,600 on December 10th, 2024. Approximately 8.2% of the $34,500 of the overdue balance is greater than 60 days past due. This compares to 9.7% or $31,000 on December 10th, 2024. And that's basically all I have, Your Worship.
Thank
Cut her
you,
sweet and short.
Councillor Morrison. Not Morrison, McDougall. Sorry, Bruce.
Close enough.
We'll move on to item B, 8B, Council Representative for Governance, HR, and Legal Services. I see what's happened here. Sorry, folks, I didn't look at all of this here. It just says Council Representative, and then the names are all blank. So previous, now I have to remember.
It's me.
Someone got ahead of us. Who was the governance and HR?
Me.
Sorry, Nick.
Over here.
All right, I'll just expect people to stand up and say their thing, and when it comes to Carrie, if no one moves, we'll know it's Carrie's. I know she's emergency services. Councillor Cameron.
All right, thanks. Ads were posted for an assisted facilities service supervisor. Interviews were held, and Jamie Adams was awarded the position, so congratulations to Jamie. Ads have been posted for an ice maker and seasonal employee for community services. The posting for the planner position was closed, and interviews have been conducted. Cadet Jonathan Palmer has started his OJT with Summerside Police Services. Jonathan is one of the city's sponsored cadets and will be joining the department following his graduation from the Atlantic Police Academy. 3 more sponsored cadets, Donovan Falcon, Reed Macbeth, who I met the other day, Caleb Snow, have all just started with the academy, and we wish them well. And this year's holiday programming for staff saw a child's toy or board game delivered to each department who were tasked with wrapping these items in a dazzling fashion. I'm not sure I've ever used the word dazzling before in my life. The wrapping was then judged by a professional in this area, a child. Congratulations to Human Resources and Legal Affairs, who received the top prize of a pizza party. Runner-up was the Electrical Department, who won a gift card to Pizza Delight. The delightfully wrapped parcels were then donated to the Kinsman Appeal. And that's all. Thanks.
Council Representative for Municipal Services.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is good. I stood, so now we know I'm speaking. Yeah, so the winter season, I read this and I'm thinking, ironically, we had a storm today, so we could edit it a little bit. But up till today, yeah, the winter season was pretty slow, so not much snow plowing, predominantly geared towards milder weather around the freezing point. So that makes the Public Works Department apply more salt on the sidewalks and roads more frequently. And the public is reminded to travel safely as temperatures change from the pluses to the minuses, and the community can experience some flash freezing, which is not very enjoyable. The water and sewer annual reports for 2024 are under development and will be published online in early February. These reports will show the operational tests of sewer treatment, water quality, and potable drinking water. So the utility highlights this year, and I guess 2024, ended another banner year. So it went from 2021, there was 200 electrical connections and upgrades, and it progressed until 3,065. There's 4 years there. If anybody's interested, they can review the changes and the growth. With local renewables of solar and wind, now makes up 60% of Summerside electricity. And the other 40% are purchased from New Brunswick at 80% renewable. So that makes Summerside Electric like over the 90% mark, which is pretty incredible. And Director Greg Gordie mentions that it's basically, in terms of the island, it makes it the lowest carbon footprint of all islanders, so you should choose electricity. So I guess that's a testament to move to Summerside, which is pretty amazing. So and developments, any developments that are ongoing that requiring electrical services are reminded to start this process early, because from purchasing materials to scheduling work, it takes time. So call 902-432-1268 to start the process. And the final comment is that the Credit Union Place, the Veteran Convention Center is going to have an open house, and so that's going to be on February 5th, 2025. And it's in regards to the city's new potential investment of our new electrical generator. And it's 6 to 8 in case anybody's paying attention. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And now call on Councillor McColman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to thank Director Laurie Ellis for the Culture Summerside Public Report, and I'll be bringing information on the Culture Summerside activity through December, mid-January. The Wide Heritage Properties Incorporated and Culture Summerside presented The Magic of Christmas, the Christmas tree exhibit at Wide Heritage Properties, and that took place in December. The exhibit celebrated the history of the long-standing tradition of Christmas trees, one of the most embraced traditions of Christmas. And this exhibit was presented in coordination with Yuletide Festival. The exhibit and festival components shared great visitation from festival goers, and the feedback was very, very positive. Community Services team did an exceptional job of decorating the outdoor spaces as well. The deadlines are being met in the area of grant writing. Proposals and reports are being submitted to the government organizations pertaining to past programming and proposed programming for summer, fall, and winter 2025, and summer student wages. The gallery space of the McNaught History Center and Archives featured a Christmas card exhibit drawing on the Christmas cards in the archival collection. The history of the tradition was imparted as part of the exhibit, and a great learning experience. The City of Summerside is seeking nominations for its annual Heritage and Cultural Awards, and the awards are given out to individuals and groups which in 2024 carried out activities to preserve, promote, educate, and celebrate heritage, arts, and culture in the community. The city recognizes the role of heritage, arts, and culture in building a very strong, vibrant community and believes it is important for these endeavors to be recognized, and the public is invited to nominate candidates for the awards, and the deadline is January 24th, 25. So that concludes my report to council.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call on Councillor Duran, Technical Services.
You remembered.
Yeah, I wrote them down here now.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have closed out the 2024 construction season, but a number of private construction projects will continue throughout the winter. Staff are working on the 2025 capital budget items while wrapping up the paperwork from this year's projects, referring to last year, I suppose. Staff will also start designing our portion of the 2025 capital project in an effort to have them ready for spring tenders and May construction starts. 7 building permits with a value of just over $14.1 million were issued for the month of December, for a year-to-date total of 183 permits and a value of $100.7 million. We issued 1 commercial permit for an alteration, and on the residential side, we issued permits for 1 single-family detached, 2 sign permits, and 1 demolition permit. We also issued a permit for a 40-unit apartment building. So as mentioned, we have surpassed the $100 million mark for the second consecutive year. The permit values for the last 3 to 4 years have spiked. The total value of permits for the 5-year period of 2020 to 2024 was $374 million for a yearly average of $75 million. The previous 15-year period of 2005 to 2019 had a total of $386 million, with an average of $26 million. So that's quite a accomplishment. Developers are stopping in and speaking to staff for assistance with their proposed projects for next year, and now is also a great time for our citizens to ask for assistance with their projects that they may have planned for 2025. A huge thanks to Aaron McDonald for and his team for all the work that they put in last year, and thanks to Aaron for preparing the report for this month.
Thank you, Councillor Duran. With that, we'll move to Deputy Mayor, Councillor Snow. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to start by thanking Director Mike Thususka for compiling the report. He was here this evening and presented, so I'll keep this one short with the extensive review we had earlier. This past month has been exceptionally busy for Economic Development Office, marked by extensive engagement, strategic planning, and significant progress on various initiatives. A couple of those highlights were the collaboration with UPEI School of Engineering, continuing our partnership with the University of Prince Edward Island School of Engineering to develop a positive energy district aimed at enhancing sustainable energy practices within the community. Some corporate calls, conducted several corporate calls including the Atlantic Police Academy regarding their expansion and growth plans. Committed to continuing our collaboration with the APA to support their ambitions and ensure their successful development within the community. Partnership with Innovation PEI, aerospace and clean tech opportunities, collaborating with Innovation PEI to advance opportunities in aerospace and clean technology sectors, focusing on attracting inward investment to Summerside. And then lastly, collaboration with Blue Wave, program opportunities, engaging with Blue Wave on initiatives that are expected to significantly boost employment opportunities at their Summerside location. Advancing clean tech leadership, these efforts will further cement Summerside's position as a leader in clean technology innovation while driving local economic growth sustainability. That is the report from Director Mike Thususka.
Thank you, Councillor Snow. Any questions, comments from council? Here none, we'll move on to the next, which is Representative Adams from Emergency Services. Did Councillor Adams reach out to anyone to read in a report? All right, I'll do it if she did not. No problem. Summary of calls for December 2024, 32 calls to SFD, 9 medical first responder calls, 19 silent alarms, and 4 general alarms. The 2025 fire calls to date on the following page are set out in the chart as requested by council. Training, firefighters had a very quiet 102 hours of training in December, including ice rescue, drone programming, and continual thermal imaging training. The notes, except for the biting cold wind, which we all remember, the 2024 Santa Claus Parade went off without a hitch. It did more than that. It was a great event for all of our community, and residents really enjoyed it. The fundraiser generated over $9,000 that went directly to the Kinsman Christmas Appeal, the St. Eleanor's Lions Club, and the Salvation Army Christmas Appeal. These three organizations really help our community and the Summerside Fire Department to make a difference at Christmas time here in Summerside. Also in December, SFD celebrated their annual awards night, an evening honoring achievements and milestones within the department, of which there were many. The event was attended by Mayor, myself, and Council, and highlighted the significance of this special occasion. Throughout the night, firefighters were recognized for their hard work and dedication, and accolades serve as a testament to the commitment demonstrated by the department throughout the year. The highlight of the evening was the announcement made by Councillor Adams a couple of days in advance of the official announcement, revealing the exciting news about the timing and layout of the fire hall becoming a reality in the next couple of years. The Age building has served the fire department well for the past 62 years, but they're very excited to move forward. Moving to Summerside Police Services, December was a busy month for training for our MCU, with 3 members completing initial critical incident response training, 1 member completing major crimes investigative techniques at the Royal Police College, and 1 member completing a search warrant course, and another attending crisis negotiator training in Halifax. Constable Mallory Metallic was named Crime Stopper Municipal Police Officer of the Year. Congratulations to Mallory. That was a great event and a well-deserved achievement for such a strong officer. We currently have 4 cadets in training through the Atlantic Police Academy. Cadet Jonathan Palmer started his OJT placement with SPS in January 6th, and again, the Summerside Police Department doing a great job with the cadet program to fill up, to ensure we have all the police officers that we need in our community. Same week, cadets Donovan Falcon, Caleb Snow, Reed Macbeth began their on-site training work at the Police Academy as well. Cops for Christmas was held on December 7th. The event was very well supported again this year. We thank the community for their support. On December 10th, Constable Apple put on a senior safety session at the Rotary Library with a focus on internet safety and common scams, of which there are many. And on December 18th, Crossing Guard Arlene McKenna received the Crossing Guard of the Year Award. Congratulations, Arlene. Councillor Snow and I were both there to surprise Arlene, as well as 300 wild students at Elm Street School, and she had no idea it was coming, and it was she was in for quite the surprise, and it was very well deserved. And we joked, I think, at the event that she helped both of our kids cross the street on their way to Elm Street School over the years. Corporal Murray assisted in organizing and planning the city staff Christmas party, and once again, the committee as a whole did an outstanding job. That's submitted by Deputy Chief Jason Blackyer. And with that, move to the last one, Community Services and Tourism, unless there's any questions. Community Services and Tourism, Representative Purnell, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Your Worship. Summerside Dome. The Dome has been active, welcoming regular user groups and hosting several birthday parties. The New Year's Eve celebration was a highlight, providing a lively atmosphere and a chance for the public to explore what the Dome has to offer. Active Living. December was a busy month for Active Living, with hosting an exciting lineup of free festive programs designed to bring community together and spread holiday cheer, such as Christmas story time, cookie decorating, candy cane bingo, and Christmas crafts. Active Living also prepared a variety of programming for January, including the launch of our Winter Walk program and the Learn to Run 5K initiative. In the Confederation Bridge Aquatic Center at Credit Union Place, the pool saw 8 participants for New Year's Eve sensory swim and maintained a steady attendance of 150 participants at all times during the main New Year's Eve swim. Aquafit classes saw 663 participants in December. Swimming lessons are fully booked for the month of January. The box office, the Convention Center remained busy, hosting corporate Christmas events and regular client training sessions. And there were also 26 bookings in the Convention Center and 11 in the Oval. January will include 5 Summerside Western Capitals games and 23 pre-booked Convention Hall events to start the new year. off strong. Parks and Green Spaces. The Parks and Green Spaces team is actively preparing winter outdoor facilities while managing winter maintenance and snow removal. Flooding on the ice surface at Skierman Park is underway, and construction of a snow hill at Queen Elizabeth Park has proceeded. Additionally, once weather conditions improve, the division will proceed with installing ice at Queen Elizabeth Park Oval. Sports, entertainment, tourism, Summerside sets. Staff finalized a customized member spotlight page on the Sport Tourism Canada website. This page highlights sets, past events, available venues, and the city's hosting capabilities. December was a busy month, starting with assistance in organizing the Santa Claus Parade on December 6th, followed by the official Christmas tree lighting and the opening of the Yuletide Festival. The sets team produced the Yuletide Festival throughout December at Veterans Memorial Square Park and the grounds of Culture Summerside. This included one Friday night and 3 Saturday events with family-friendly activities and programming from 4 to 8. And meetings are ongoing with partner national sports organizations, Hockey Canada, Baseball Canada, and Curling Canada, in preparation for major events coming to Summerside this year. And in closing, I'd probably be remiss if I didn't mention that the city's also going to host another national baseball, I believe August 5th. I got to go by memory. I'm not getting emails or anything. So August 5th and 9th. In the summer, or in August of 2026, and I think it's an under-17 tournament called the Canada Cup, and it'll happen 2 or 3 weeks, I think, previous or before the Roy Carter Cup, which is the same. So 2 pretty substantial events for August of 2026, and personally I'm looking forward to being able to attend and watch some great ball. So congratulations to JP and his crew of Community Services. It's been an honor to be somewhat part of your team, I guess, for the last 2 years, give or take, and look forward to doing something different down the road.
Thank you, Councillor. 2 final points before we adjourn. Councillor McColman brought to my attention something to raise as well. A really important evening here in our community. Of February 22nd is the coldest night of the year. The coldest night of the year is a family-friendly walk to raise money for local charities and serving people who are experiencing hurt, hunger, and homelessness. This year, again, Lifehouse Summerside is hosting the event with fantastic community sponsorship and opportunities. As I understand, the walk will start again from the Credit Union Place. The City of Summerside is a partner with Lifehouse in a whole bunch of different ways. But for all of council, if you can get out and join and walk or join a team or do what you want to do, but try and highlight as well the event for members of our community. And then the last is this morning we were shut down because of the snowstorm, and I picked up Sanders RV and we drove in here and traipsed our way through the snow. And I signed the twinning agreement with the city of Kremenets in Ukraine, Mayor Shimalnek, and I met along with the first commander, or I forget the exact name, administrator from the embassy, as well as the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, who participated with the translation services. They were delayed. There was an emergency on their end. 30 minutes. I decided not to let them know that we were delayed because of snow. So sometimes when you realize what sort of held you up, you put it in perspective. They were incredibly excited, very happy, positive bunch. There was a whole group of them. They all squeezed together on the camera, and lots of thumbs up. So some positive news there, and look forward to now engaging throughout our community. And we'll probably start with culture and then some of the service organizations in our community. With that, Council, we will adjourn and look forward to seeing you all when I next see you. Good evening.